Episode 1. Mao Xiuan didn't know what to say. He was scared of saying something wrong and anger Chen Xinan. Chen Xinan might try to get rid of him later on. Therefore, he half-heartedly said heh. Xin Haoyue grunted in disdain. Humph! I knew there was something going on between them. Even if you don't tell me, I already know everything. Because of the conversation, the atmosphere was unbelievably strange and quiet while they ate lunch. When Xin Haoyue and Mao Xiuan left the cafeteria, she said, "Stop looking for me in the future." Mao Xiuan asked, "Is that because of Chen Xinan?" Xin Haoyue's smile stiffened. Another reason is because I'm angry at you for secretly taking a video of me. So, don't show your face in front of me for a period of time. Otherwise, I might take revenge on you if I can't control myself. Mao Xiuan. On the other hand, Chen Xinan was also having dinner. Last time, Wang Yinlin had specially invited him to attend a dinner, but Chen Xinan knew what the adults were busy with, so he had rejected their invitations a few times. Now, Wang Yinlin was pressuring him by using the old man. Chen Xinan grew up surviving the old man's beatings. Although Chen Xinan was unreasonable from childhood, the old man was even more unreasonable and harsh, using feather dusters and sticks to beat him up. Gradually, he would only yield to the old man. Whenever the old man said something, Chen Xinan could only half-heartedly respond and eat with the so-called Lai family and their daughter, who had just returned to the country. Of course, he had a cold expression on the whole time. Besides greeting the adults of the Lai family when he came in, he never looked at them. The daughter of the Lai family bit her lip and looked like she was extremely wronged when he didn't say anything to her after she glanced up at him for a few hundred times. Wang Yinlin was on the sidelines, trying to mediate between their relationship. She had scolded him as being unfilial at least 10 times. After Chen Xinan ate a bit, he elegantly picked up the paper napkin and wiped the corner of his mouth. He got up and said, "Sorry, I'm going to the bathroom." Without waiting for the other party to reply, he immediately left. Finally, Lai family's parents' faces looked ugly. Wang Yinlin smiled and apologized. "Xinan is a bit proud. It will be better once you get to know him." However, she was thinking the opposite of what she had said. The Lai family's parents could only smile apologetically. In reality, claiming connections with Chen family was something that the people in the city could only dream about. After Chen Xinan got out of the private room and turned a few corners, he stopped by a narrow end of the stairs and looked out the window where the bright lights outside. Chen Xinan pulled out a cigarette box from his pocket and started to smoke. He had smoked a few times before, but he wasn't really addicted. However, there was a lot going on in the company and it was difficult to sleep after handling everything since it was in the middle of the night. It was very lonely and boring this late, so he had slowly began to smoke in order to pass time. Of course, he only casually smoked. Chen Xinan smoked a bit before gradually spitting out smoke rings. He squinted his eyes and looked through the smoke. Unclear as to what he was looking at. He stood for a while, took out his phone, and casually scrolled through it to see the video Mao Xiuan sent. Mao Xiuan wouldn't dare to send him a boring video, so he opened it to check it out. In this quiet space, even the woman's voice became especially clear. Chen Xinan slightly squinted his eyes, and the red light in his right hand's fingertips slightly flashed. He watched her serious expression and her determined words. After Chen Xinan saw this, he had actually played it again. Then he deleted it and sent Mao Xiuan a text. "Come out and drink with me." Chen Xinan slightly squinted his eyes. The red light between the fingertips of his right hand flashed. He attentively watched her serious expression as she resolutely said those words. When he finished watching it once, he had actually replayed it again. After he finished watching it the second time, he deleted the video and texted a message to Mao Xiuan. "Come and drink with me." After sending the text message, he put out the cigarette. Without turning back, Chen Xinan walked straight towards the entrance of the dining hall. However, he never anticipated that he would accidentally meet Xin Changcheng on the first-floor lounge. Xin Changcheng was dressed in formal attire, with an assistant following behind him. In addition to the assistant were 3 big-bellied middle-aged men. From their appearance, it seemed that they had just finished attending a dinner party and were preparing to leave. When Xin Qiancheng spotted Chen Xinan from afar, the expression on his face turned cold. Ever since his little sister stopped pestering Chen Xinan, Xin Qiancheng felt that he could finally lift his face again. When Chen Xinan saw that Xin Qiancheng was looking at him with hostility, he stopped walking and looked up at this man with interest. Xin Qiancheng instructed his assistant, "Help me send off the bosses." The bosses naturally got the hint that Xin Qiancheng wanted to discuss something with Chen Xinan, so they complimented. "Since President Xin has something to do, we will leave first. We will talk about the specific details regarding the arrangements for our collaboration tomorrow." "Okay?" Xin Qiancheng nodded his head. Soon after they left him, he saw that they had respectfully stopped walking and chatted a little with Chen Xinan when they walked past him. Chen Xinan impatiently and perfunctorily nodded his head at them and responded a few words. Xin Qiancheng waited for everyone to leave before he said, "I'm less than impressed by President Chen's attitude. President Xin is not to be outdone either. Xin Haoyue naturally knew whether Chen Xinan was either joking or telling the truth. For the Xin family to develop to what it is today was thanks to the hard work of the many generations. In Shenzhen City, their company can be considered to be rich, outstanding, and elite. However, Xin Haoyue knew the situation of the company better than anyone else. When their company was compared to the influential Chen Corporation, there was a huge distance between them. Xin Haoyue had vision and ambition, so he had always considered Chen Xinan as rival. But deep down, he knew that Chen Xinan had never taken him seriously. Because of that, every time he saw Chen Xinan, he would lose his reasoning and exchange a hostile few words with him. If he doesn't do so, Xin Haoyue would feel restless. Is President Chen here for work too? Chen Xinan wasn't interested in answering his question. He just smiled and said, My mother said that the Xin family is good, and that the young lady from the Xin family is very likable too. His words were light as a feather without any sincere feelings behind it. This caused Xin Haoyue's expression to immediately darken. Chen Xinan smiled with satisfaction as he nodded his head. He gestured that he was going to leave, then he turned around and confidently left. Before Chen Xinan had seen Xin Haoyue in person, he had heard a little about him from other people. This man was only older than him by 4 to 5 years, and was also considered one of the young and promising successors of a powerful business in Shenzhen City. After meeting him 2 to 3 times, Chen Xinan found out what Xin Haoyue's fatal weak point was. This man wasn't willing to have his little sister to have any relationship with him at all. Because of Xin Haoyue's recent change of behavior, it gave Xin Haoyue the confidence to face him again. However, Chen Xinan can easily break his confidence with just a simple sentence. Chen Xinan suddenly found out that Xin Haoyue was pretty useful. Mao Xiuan had waited quite a while in the private room before the Chen Xinan finally arrived. When he saw Chen Xinan enter in while dressed in formal attire, Mao Xiuan put back the wine glass he had just picked up and asked in surprise, Why did you suddenly want to drink with me? Chen Xinan removed his jacket, loosened the tie around his neck, and unbuttoned 2 of the buttons on his neckline. Mao Xiuan looked up at the male god who didn't reply to his question and began to undress. He was stunned by the man's action and asked, What are you doing? Chen Xinan glanced at him. Mao Xiuan felt like he got goosebumps all over his body. He immediately stood up, waved his hand, and said, If you have something you want to say, just say it. Male god, please don't look at me like that. There's no point in using the male beauty trap here. If it was a female that was sitting here, Mao Xiuan knew that the female would have thrown herself at Chen Xinan in less than 3 seconds. Chen Xinan slowly sat down and he poured himself a glass of wine in the empty wine glass. He took a sip of the wine and suddenly said, Phone. What? Mao Xiuan was confused by his sudden response. Chen Xinan repeated himself and said, Your cell phone. Mao Xiuan didn't think much of his request as he took out his cell phone and handed it to him. He asked, You didn't bring your phone? Chen Xinan didn't reply. He simply gestured for Mao Xiuan to unlock his phone. Mao Xiuan obediently followed his order and unlocked his phone. Feeling surprised when he saw Chen Xinan grab it from his hands, he couldn't help but ask, You really didn't bring your phone with you? After Chen Xinan quickly pressed a few buttons on his phone, he returned it to Mao Xiuan. Only after giving back the phone did Chen Xinan replied, I did. Mao Xiuan accepted it back, but he was still a little puzzled after hearing his friend's reply. He asked, Since you've brought your phone, why did you need mine? Chen Xinan meaningfully glanced at him. Mao Xiuan stared blankly at him, but then it seemed as if he finally recalled something as he hurriedly unlocked his phone. He searched his phone for the recording he had of Xin Haoyue and Ji and found that it was gone. Mao Xiuan exploded. Chen Xinan, are you retaliating against me? Chen Xinan rejected this idea as he replied, How does deleting a video count as retaliating against you? Mao Xiuan felt that this man was very difficult to understand. I'm trying to help you out of kindness. What are you trying to do by deleting it? If you aren't going to delete it, what are you keeping it for? Are you keeping it as a souvenir? Mao Xiuan choked on his words and was unable to respond. After some time passed, he finally reacted and said, Nan, could it be that Xin Haoyue asked you to delete the video? No wonder I feel like there is something fishy going on when you invited me out to drink tonight. It seems that you had dug a pit and waited for me to jump in. Chen Xinan slightly looked at Mao Xiuan from the corners of his eyes. Mao Xiuan said, Today I had a meal with her. She was determined to steal my phone and delete the video. But of course she wasn't able to. However, in the end, he had never expected that Chen Xinan would be the one who deleted it. Chen Xinan thoughtfully looked at the sparkling and translucent liquid inside the wine glass. Mao Xiuan paid extra attention to the expression on Chen Xinan's face. He had an intuition. Nan, could it be that you're interested in Xin Haoyue? Chen Xinan glanced at him with a smile, yet not a smile. Mao Xiuan deciphered his expression as, No. He waved his hand. I also believe that it is impossible. In the past, Xin Haoyue had tried so hard to chase after you, but you weren't interested at all. Now, she can't wait to get as far away from you as possible, so you should have even less of an interest in her. Chen Xinan didn't reply. He just allowed him to guess as he liked. After Mao Xiuan finished speaking, Chen Xinan said, "Recently, I've been taking care of matters in my new company. You should join me." Huh? Mao Xiuan was so startled by his news that he had almost choked on his wine. "Since when did you start a new company?" "I began the preparations for the new company 2 months ago." Chen Xinan continued, "I can't pull myself away from the Chen company, so you can help me take care of some matters regarding my new company." Mao Xiuan glanced up at him. It didn't seem like Chen Xinan was playing a joke, so he slapped the table with his hand and replied, "Okay." Chen Xinan nodded his head. After having 2 more sips of wine, Mao Xiuan can't help but ask, "I heard that Xin Haoyue moved out of the apartment complex you're currently living at." Huh? Chen Xinan slightly narrowed his eyes. Mao Xiuan continued, "I heard this from her today." Chen Xinan squinted at him and said, "You seem quite familiar with her." Mao Xiuan dryly laughed. "I'm only trying to help you change her mind, but who would have thought she had cut off all her escape routes?" Chen Xinan glanced at him. He knew that Mao Xiuan was purely enjoying the show and didn't feel like this was a big matter. Mao Xiuan didn't pay any attention to Chen Xinan's expression. While continuing to butt into others' business, he said, "She's very strange. In order to avoid you, she had even used Shen Wenyang, who was abroad, as a reason to give up." Chen Xinan's expression slightly changed as he continued to listen to Mao Xiuan gossip. "What did you do to make her so discouraged to this point? She wasn't willing to turn back no matter what. It seems like she views you as someone extremely dangerous." Chen Xinan took a deep breath. He was somewhat agitated as he said, "Don't mention her to me anymore." Mao Xiuan detected that something was off, so he obediently shut up. In fact, Mao Xiuan had misunderstood Chen Xinan when he had said, "Don't mention her to me anymore." The her he mentioned wasn't Xin Haoyue, but Sheng Wenyang. What outsiders didn't know was that while the way Chen Xinan treated Sheng Wenyang was different, it was only because of her distinctive charm. His feelings for her wasn't to the point where he loved her to death and back. In the beginning, Sheng Wenyang was like a bright and dazzling sun that broke into his world. She was beautiful and capable, mature and steady and strong. Step by step, she had purposely approached him, confessed, and had followed through the standard routine to get closer to him. Even though Chen Xinan had seen every stage put into action, he didn't feel disgusted by her. Instead, he had just let her do what she wanted. Perhaps Sheng Wenyang believed that she was infallible. She believed that his occasional response to her advances was due to his growing affections, so she ran to him and cried about how her ordinary family could not match up to the strong and impressive the Chen family was. Sheng Wenyang said that she wanted to go abroad to train herself to be more outstanding, so that she could proudly stand side by side with him. Chen Xinan looked at her and did not say a single word. While Sheng Wenyang played a weeping beauty, she did not forget to pull down on his neckline and tiptoe, kissing Chen Xinan on the cheek. She then buried her head in his arms and continued to sob. "Chen Xinan, I love you." Sheng Wenyang's display of love did not elicit a response. However, there was no better answer than his allowance of her to stay within his arms and kiss him. Chen Xinan had allowed all of her affectionate actions. This was enough to make Sheng Wenyang intensely proud of herself and confident. He had mysophobia and always disliked being touched by others. However, Sheng Wenyang was an exception to the case. This point was known by many people. That was why rumors of Chen Xinan and Sheng Wenyang being in love with each gradually emerged. Those who saw the two together were even more convinced of the matter. Even Mao Xiuan thought that in this lifetime, the only person that could move Chen Xinan's heart was Sheng Wenyang. After the two drank some wine, they bade farewell to each other and went their separate ways. Chen Xinan encountered Wang Yinlin at the entrance of his apartment. She had waited there for him for 10 minutes already. He rubbed his faintly throbbing temples and put up a smile. "Mom, how come you're here?" Wang Yinlin was angered by him to the point that she already had one foot in her coffin. In a bad mood, she replied, "If I didn't come here, then I wouldn't be able to see my son again for most of the month." Chen Xinan lazily turned his head and looked away. He didn't know what these elders were doing. Were they bothered about how there was nothing to do, so they just started randomly worried about him? Wang Yinlin saw that he didn't speak and that he even held a contemplative expression on his face. She followed his line of sight and saw that his gaze was fixed on the neighbor's door. After staring at it for a few seconds, she suddenly understood and stated, "It turns out the reason you kept refusing our matchmaking was because you liked the girl living next door." Chen Xinan didn't even think and immediately replied, "She moved away." What he wanted to express was that she no longer lived here, and that they no longer had any relations with each other. Also, to prevent her from falling again one day and becoming abnormal, he had already bought the apartment from the owner at a high price, so that she can no longer move back. However, in Wen Yinlin's ears, it came across differently. The thoughts that arose in her heart were, his tone was filled with hidden bitterness. It sounded just like he was abandoned. Then she thought about it some more. That day, the girl's attitude did not reveal any interest. It must be that she had no thoughts for him, otherwise she would not have moved away so suddenly. Wang Yinlin became elated when she realized that there was someone who actually didn't like her son. It should be known that Chen Xinan had been receiving love letters since preschool. Whenever he spoke about girls, he always had this proud and overbearing aura around him, making her very angry. Rarely were there people that can cause him to be humiliated. Wang Yinlin immediately smiled and inquired, "What is the name of that girl? Where does she come from?" Chen Xinan looked at his mother strangely. "Mom, what do you want to do?" Wang Yinlin replied, "If you like someone, you should just say it outright. Just look at your qualifications. Are you still afraid that the girl won't be moved?" Chen Xinan quickly realized what his mother had misunderstood. "Mom, there isn't anything between me and that girl." "Mom knows, but you're a male after all. Being a little more proactive won't hurt. Maybe if you are a little more proactive, the girl will be moved. You should listen and do as I say. Don't always go around with that stiff expression on your face. Smile more. Girls prefer men who are gentler and more considerate." Chen Xinan shook his head helplessly. He was too lazy to even explain and allowed her to continue and misunderstand. Anyways, it's better than having her always shove females toward him. Since Wang Yinlin thought that his heart was already set on that girl, she didn't bother him for a good half-month. Mao Xiuan also truly kept Chen Xinan's words. Don't bring her up again in his heart. Even after several meetings, he only brought up matters regarding the new company, no longer mentioning Xin Xue's name. Chen Xinan continued to busy himself with work every day. However, he inexplicably felt that something was missing in his life. After he thought carefully about it, he felt that this kind of normal lifestyle was correct. There wasn't anything wrong, so he no longer thought about it deeply. It wasn't until he was on a business trip and attending a birthday celebration that he realized what was missing. When he saw Xin Haoyue in a white off-the-shoulder dress at the same venue as him, Chen Xinan finally discovered what his monotonous life was missing. Originally, Xin Haoyue wasn't planning on showing her face to the birthday banquet, since she didn't know anyone attending. Xin Haoyue grabbed Xin Chanchang's arm and held onto her dress, making small, careful steps on her 7-centimeter high heels. Perhaps because it was the first time she had paid attention to her attire, but she still felt extremely uncomfortable. Xin Haoyue lowered her head to focus on her footsteps, but didn't forget to complain to Xin Chanchang. "I already said that I didn't want to come. You forced me to attend. Plus, I already made an appointment tonight to continue to learn how to dance with the teacher." Ever since Xin Haoyue forfeited the competition, she understood. If she wanted to mingle, she needed a special ability she could demonstrate. The host normally wanted someone who had a lot of talent and abilities. They should be able to recite, dance, sing, or play an instrument. As long as you have an extra ability, others will think more highly of you. When the time came, Xin Haoyue did not want to do something last minute, so she immediately found a dance teacher and a piano teacher. Every night, she alternated what she learned. In Xin Haoyue's view, spending time on self-improvement was a much better choice in comparison to attending a banquet filled with people that she did not know. However, Xin Chanchang didn't think so. Although he later asked what happened with her and Chen Xinan's mother, she had only carelessly replied that on the day she returned to the apartment, they had accidentally encountered one another. They hadn't spoken much before she had realized the strange situation and smartly left. After she had finished speaking, Xin Chanchang was silent for a moment. On the surface, the encounter sounded perfectly normal. Yet, listening to Xin Haoyue's tone, it seemed like it wasn't that simple. Xin Chanchang, in order to remove the possibility of future trouble, thought that it was still better to let Xin Haoyue come out and interact with people, thereby getting to know better quality men. That way, she can more easily break off her foolish thoughts about Chen Xinan. Xin Haoyue did not know that Xin Chanchang still entertained such thoughts. She really would have wanted to stab his head and say, "Do I look like that kind of leisurely person?" Xin Chanchang was very diligent in his duties, taking Xin Haoyue to congratulate the 70-year-old birthday host. He brought her away from the crowd and introduced her to each person, making a point of giving Xin Haoyue space whenever he introduced her to handsome young men, whom he had selected very carefully, of course. No matter how stupid Xin Haoyue was, she understood that this was basically a blind date banquet that Xin Chanchang had arranged. "Shoot!" The young man with Xin Haoyue at the moment, who just would not stop rambling about his career history, couldn't help but ask after suddenly hearing her say something under her breath. "Miss Xin, what did you just say?" Xin Haoyue forced a rigid smile on her face. "Sorry, I'm a bit tired and would like to rest over there." "Then let me accompany you." "Thank you, but there's no need," Xin Haoyue smiled as she politely rejected him. When Chen Xinan arrived in the front hall, he was witness to this scene. Xin Haoyue wore a revealing long dress which opened just below her shoulders and teased the passersby to imagine the rest of her delicate frame. She was smiling, talking to a man who was barely a step away from her. Chen Xinan couldn't hear the man's response, but Xin Haoyue smiled even brighter, waving her hands at him. She carried her dress and walked over to the corner where the resting area was. Tonight was the first time Xin Haoyue attended an event after crossing over. Her hair had been done by a hairstylist under Xin Chanchang's command for about 2 hours. Her long hair softly pulled up, leaving a few soft strands to lay on her shoulder. Chen Xinan's gaze stopped at her snow-white skin for a moment before he was greeted by the view of her slender back. The sight made him impatient. What was she planning to do, dressing like this? Gloom settled on his face as he received red wine delivered to him by a waiter. He pursed his lips, feeling the constant irritation that the surrounding environment was causing him. He raised his head to scan the banquet's front hall, but was surrounded by people who wanted to win his favor before his gaze even landed on the resting area. As he finally made his way out, he was nagged by the owner of the banquet and stopped to speak for a bit. Of course, the conversation was always one way. Enthusiastic conversation would be met with Chen Xinan's curt responses and occasional glances. Chen Xinan took the chance to move elsewhere when changing wine glass. He passed through the crowd and finally saw her. Xin Haoyue had her head down, fixing her dress, but she wanted to take the time to look at her miserable feet. What Xin Haoyue really wanted to do was to take her shoes off and walk comfortably on the floor. Considering her image, she suppressed her urges, but this didn't hinder her from scolding Xin Chancheng. Why did he choose such a long evening dress? It was all because of him that she wore such high heels. Anything but high heels. It was all Xin Chancheng's fault that she was so miserable. She felt indignant. What if she sent a message to Xin Chancheng telling him that she wasn't feeling well? After all, she had accompanied him and even helped him talk with so many men. Wasn't she loyal enough already? Xin Haoyue thought it was an okay plan, so she lowered her head again to flip through her bag for her phone. It took a while, but she noticed, quite tragically, that her stylists had found her a matching handbag. She never placed her phone in it. Was she stupid? Did she actually forget to bring her phone? Xin Haoyue felt so unprepared. She may as well have forgotten to look at the calendar before going out. Everything about that day was warning her that it wasn't a good idea to go out. She anxiously looked at the attendees passing by, attempting to find Xin Chancheng, but her earnest gaze never fell upon him. Instead, she attracted the attention of Chen Xinan. When Xin Haoyue noticed a dark silhouette hovering over her, she looked over without a thought to suddenly find herself captivated by his handsome face. She almost threw her bag in surprise. Shoot. Why is Chen Xinan here too? Why would he attend a boring banquet like this? But more importantly, why is he standing here? Xin Haoyue quickly snapped out of her trance as quickly as it came. She immediately dismissed the look on her face and expressionlessly asked, "Why are you standing here?" Quickly. Leave. Get out of there. She could feel herself pierced by the gazes of the young women around her. She didn't want to stand out. Chen Xinan was about 180 centimeters. While Xin Haoyue sat, he only needed to lower his head slightly to see her exquisite makeup as he stood. Her cheeks were flush with a warm blush, and her fair complexion was delicate even without the makeup. She was even more moving when she decided to dress up. Chen Xinan's gaze stopped on her eyes, full of life. The lasting impression he had of her was when he unexpectedly saw her by the stairwell, her eyes bright and charming, but hiding a certain pitiableness to them. He couldn't see those eyes anymore, as all he saw in Xin Haoyue's eyes was unhappiness. Chen Xinan looked at her eye lines and commented, "You didn't do your eyes very well." Xin Haoyue didn't know if he was talking about her eyes or saying that her makeup didn't look good. She retorted, "I don't care if it looks good. I wasn't planning on letting you see it anyways." "Humph, it's good enough. Did he come here just to criticize my looks?" When Xin Chancheng first saw her, he complimented her, saying she was beautiful. But this man was quite picky, she could feel it in his gaze. After Xin Haoyue comforted herself, she didn't mind anymore. After all, it didn't matter whether or not Chen Xinan thought she was beautiful. As long as he thought Sheng Wenyang was pretty, then it was fine. Chen Xinan's gaze naturally lowered, descending from her face to her snow-white shoulders and her beautiful collarbone. Even lower, he could see a faint hint of cleavage. The sight was stunning, and even Chen Xinan found himself under its effects before he reluctantly averted his eyes. Xin Haoyue retorted as he awkwardly shifted his gaze. She thought that he finally realized that he said the wrong thing, wanting to continue to scold him when he coldly said, "Stand up." What? Xin Haoyue didn't understand. Chen Xinan shifted his gaze once again to look at her, looking at her chest intently. Xin Haoyue's reaction was slow. When she lowered her head to meet the subject of his gaze, it finally hit her, and she stood up. "You pervert," she angrily exclaimed. Chen Xinan curled his lips. "You're the one not paying attention. Why are you blaming me? Only you would look there. If you didn't wear that, who would look at it?" "Chen Xinan, you're twisting my words. Do you guys know each other?" A pleasant female voice interjected as the two were arguing. Xin Haoyue was too tired to pay any attention to Chen Xinan. She turned in the direction of the voice to see a beautiful woman with wavy hair. The woman wore a dainty short skirt and was looking eagerly at Chen Xinan. Xin Haoyue had met her earlier. She seemed to be the granddaughter of the host. She seemed to be older than her by only a few years. She was beautiful, gentle, and had a pleasant voice. Xin Haoyue took a few more glances at her before smiling at Chen Xinan. Her eyes seemed to be saying, "Look, look, your peach blossom is here." Chen Xinan understood the look of pleasure she adopted whenever she saw another's misfortune. He didn't even turn to look at the unexpected guest. He suddenly smiled charmingly, and before she could react, he reached over to take Xin Haoyue in his arms. When Xin Haoyue felt his warm palm on her waist, she was shocked. As this happened, she tripped and threw herself on his chest. Xin Haoyue was confused. Crap, Chen Xinan, what's wrong with you? I stepped on my dress because of you. She buried her head in his embrace, and Chen Xinan used the opportunity to place his other hand on her head, preventing her from escaping. He smiled and coaxed. Be good, now. When we get home I can sleep in the study if you want to punish me. Who? You bastard. You've got a problem. Xin Haoyue desperately wanted to scream her thoughts, while the other woman was stunned by the scene. Chen Xinan brought Xin Haoyue out as she found herself half carried and half embraced by him. Xin Haoyue could finally breathe, but she was angry. She was also feeling unwell, so she didn't have it in her to scold Chen Xinan. The moment he let her go, she immediately waved her hand over in an exaggerated motion, clearly feeling flustered. In response, Chen Xinan grabbed onto her flailing wrist. What are you doing? He asked as his face clouded with gloom. After suffering this man's torment, Xin Haoyue's hair was messy and ruined. Even without looking in a mirror, she knew that she had lost her elegance and grace. Her chest heaved visibly from anger. Xin Haoyue suddenly pulled out the small hairpin that kept her hairstyle together and let her soft, long black hair fall. She fiercely scolded, Shouldn't I be the one asking you? Did you forget to take your meds when you left the house? Xin Haoyue had regretted what she said the instant it came out of her mouth. If Chen Xinan forgot to take his medicine, then she had definitely left her brain at home. How dare she scold Chen Xinan without a second thought? Her body trembled as she felt his dangerous gaze. As Chen Xinan spitefully narrowed his eyes, she thought of how her story would meet its tragic end. She calmed herself, but still felt her heart beating wildly. If she truly upset Chen Xinan, he could bring her to her death in minutes. How could she have done something so rash? Xin Haoyue's legs went soft. If she decided to grovel and apologize to Chen Xinan, she'd be going against how she had portrayed herself thus far. If she did, would she lose her pride? Didn't the saying go, one can lose anything but dignity and imposing manner? What would happen if she continued to play her stubborn act till the end? Or would it be better if she admitted that she was wrong? But, during her indecisiveness, Chen Xinan did something that made her blood run cold. He took off his jacket and draped it considerately over her shoulders. He even helped her pull the jacket closed, while she stood stunned. You made a fuss and beat me up already. Don't anger yourself. Look at how little you're wearing. Are you sure you'd want to go out like that? He said in a gentle voice. Shoot, you're the one who forced me out, okay? After criticizing him in her thoughts, she realized she was paying attention to the wrong thing. What was Chen Xinan planning now that he suddenly started acting gentle? As if on cue, the moment Xin Haoyue turned around, a handful of beautiful women stared directly at the two of them. Xin Haoyue understood it all. Chen Xinan was using her as a shield, and she needed to play along in order to escape. Xin Haoyue was in no mood to put on a monkey show with him, so she turned around, acting depressed. Take me back home. If you have any problems, tell me on the way, she said helplessly. Xin Haoyue knew that he was going to use her, but she also knew her request wasn't one he could reject. She forced him to bring her home in order to close off their act perfectly, because, in the long run, he couldn't risk people knowing it was all a ruse. Chen Xinan looked at the lonely view of her behind, knitting his eyebrows pensively. He then followed after her. On the way back, Xin Haoyue leaned her head against the back of the car seat. Her hazy eyes glazed over the bright lights passing by. She was bored. After Chen Xinan took a few minutes to get accustomed to the dark, he couldn't help but look at her. She already took off the suit jacket as soon as she got in the car, folding it and placing it in the back seat. The urgent sensation that he sensed from her was really as Mao Xiuan described, she was avoiding him like he was a scorpion. The urgent sensation that he sensed from her was really as Mao Xiuan described, she was avoiding him like he was a scorpion. Thinking of the conversation Xin Haoyue and Ji had, Chen Xinan's face filled with sadness. Xin Haoyue felt his gaze and thought about it before sitting up straight. Her eyes fixed on the unceasing red numbers in front of the crossroads, she said, I know why you acted so oddly tonight, with a serious tone in her voice. Chen Xinan still kept his bitter demeanor and didn't respond. She continued, although I'm very unhappy that you used me to protect your peach blossom, know that I'm not your enemy. Even if I'm unwilling, you can still mess with me to get me to do what you want. Xin Haoyue felt as small as an ant while talking to him. Her voice steadily lost its will and energy. What's done is done. I'll take responsibility for the gossip and PR. But I hope that we're done after this. Although I don't remember anything, I get the feeling that I was often irrational and caused you a lot of trouble in the past. I'm going to apologize to you seriously for everything. If we ever meet again, let's just act as if we don't know each other. Ever since she got in the car, Xin Haoyue had been mulling over it, and finally mustered enough courage to tell him. She didn't want to be hopelessly muddled with Chen Xinan and experience the same ending as in the book, especially after all her hard work to avoid its setup. She was insignificant, and if Chen Xinan wanted to play her, he needn't sacrifice anything to do so. She couldn't endure that risk. She was scared that her family would actually become bankrupt, that they would die out violently. Xin Haoyue couldn't help but sigh. Chen Xinan, I let you down in the past, but please have mercy. Please let me go. As she made her final request, she felt as if the heat welling up beneath her eyes would finally make her cry. She was innocent. She felt wronged. She had crossed over, not knowing why, and ended up worrying each and every day, knowing that she might really lose everything like in the book's ending. Why was he still making things hard for her even though she tried her best to avoid him? Chen Xinan's slender fingers softly tapped the steering wheel. When he saw that she was about to cry, he shifted his attention and looked away in irritation. He looked out in front of him, thinking about what he felt deep in his heart after hearing her beg, and how he couldn't explain what he was feeling. His face darkened, becoming more and more terrifying. Xin Haoyue detected the slight change of atmosphere as well. She thought that she had annoyed him because he didn't like seeing women cry, so she tried her best to hold in all the sadness. However, before she could fully hide her feelings, she suddenly heard Chen Xinan say emotionlessly, "Get out." What? Xin Haoyue was stunned. "Get out. Don't make me repeat myself again." Xin Haoyue was frightened by his icy expression, obediently opening the car door and leaving. The moment her feet touched the ground, she heard the sound of the car's ignition, and when she snapped out of her trance, it had already left her sight. Xin Haoyue stood in the wind by the cold crossroad. The fact that she was forced out of the car by Chen Xinan suddenly hit her. She also realized that she didn't bring a phone. What was most tragic was that she had left her handbag in the car. A breeze blew by, and Xin Haoyue felt the unrelenting cold assault her shoulders. "Chen Xinan, you call yourself a man?" Xin Haoyue scolded Chen Xinan's 18 generations while she walked. After Chen Xinan drove the car for a distance, all the while seeing how blurry her weak body was becoming in the rearview mirror, he eventually stopped driving. Chen Xinan gazed deeply into the rearview mirror and couldn't help but curse. He took out his phone, about to call Mao Xiuan to pick her up, when he saw her slowly walking in her heels. He couldn't help but put his phone down. Someone had quite the attitude. He parked the car on the side of the road and rolled down the window. The wind blew in and lifted his irritation away. He placed one hand by the edge of the window, his gaze still fixated on the stubborn figure that occasionally switched from walking to stopping. Xin Haoyue thought of asking Xin Chencheng for help after borrowing a passerby's phone, but when she thought of the lecherous male gazes she had received, she stopped thinking about it immediately. She realized that she didn't know anyone's phone number in this world to begin with. She had saved them in her phone and never paid them any more attention. She also discovered that she didn't even know her own number. Xin Haoyue raised her hand to her face, massaging her forehead. Heaven really wants to ruin me. After walking for almost 20 minutes, Xin Haoyue suddenly noticed that the black car up ahead was no longer moving. Xin Haoyue abruptly had a thought. Chen Xinan isn't the type to show compassion, before she wisely stopped herself from thinking any further in that regard. But the closer the car was, Xin Haoyue couldn't help but feel that he was in there. He didn't abandon her, but that wasn't necessarily a good thing. Did he want to torture her because he had nothing else to do? What was his problem? When Xin Haoyue moved closer to the car, she wanted to walk directly past the window. She didn't want to talk to him at all. If she did, she was afraid that she might just throw her heels at his face. Seeing that she was still in a fit, Chen Xinan had no choice but to get out of the car and stop her. Xin Haoyue proudly raised her chin and coldly said, "Get lost." There wasn't a person in the world besides Xin Haoyue who dared tell him to get lost. Chen Xinan took a deep breath before saying, "Let's make a deal." He couldn't even finish his proposal before Xin Haoyue rejected without a hint of hesitation. "No." Chen Xinan couldn't help but smile at her angry expression. "I didn't say what it was yet. I'm not interested no matter what it is." She stubbornly looked in another direction, unwilling to look at his face. Chen Xinan stopped smiling and looked at her. "As long as it has to do with me, you're not interested, right?" "You saw the video?" Xin Haoyue asked, suddenly remembering what Mao Xiuan had done. Seeing that he hadn't denied it, Xin Haoyue smiled slightly. "This will save me breath then. I'm entirely uninterested and don't want anything to do with you. I always thought that you wanted the same too." Chen Xinan wanted to retort with, "How do you know what I'm thinking?" But before he opened her mouth, she continued, "I think it isn't your style to try building a relationship with me. I understand you, Chen Xinan, so let's stop tormenting each other. Why don't we just stay on opposite sides of the world? If you really don't want to see me, I won't attend these banquets in the future and focus on learning, alright? And if you're still worried about me staying in Shengjin City, then I'll just leave, alright?" Seeing how far she stooped to tell him all that, Chen Xinan could feel what she was really trying to tell him. She didn't care about him at all. She wanted to be far away from him. Chen Xinan was displeased with how things had ended up, suddenly remembering how that night alone he'd already been rejected by the same woman standing in front of him multiple times. Xin Haoyue was really something. That night, the two of them parted on bad terms. Chen Xinan wanted to bring Xin Haoyue back, but she had refused till the very end. She stared at Chen Xinan's gloomy face. How about you call my brother and let him pick me up? She bravely suggested. Chen Xinan looked at her expressionlessly, but eventually agreed and took out his phone. Number? He demanded while unlocking his phone screen. Huh? Chen Xinan looked at how bewildered she was. He was nearly unable to hold in his anger as he said, Xin Chanchang's phone number. Xin Haoyue blinked a few times. I don't know. Chen Xinan was speechless. He tossed his phone back in the car and opened the door. Get in, he ordered. Xin Haoyue was determined not to yield to him. No. Xin Haoyue, I won't get in your car. Xin Haoyue continued. Humph, you already drove me out once. If I go back in, wouldn't I basically be saying I have no pride? Chen Xinan had never encountered anyone who disliked him that much. People needed to know that even if someone begged to hitch a ride with him, he wouldn't even bat an eye. Chen Xinan was seething. Whatever. Despite her refusal, Xin Haoyue urgently pulled on him. Don't. Why not call Mao Xuan or Ji Yi to pick me up and bring me back to school? They were the only people who she was familiar with, and Xin Haoyue couldn't think of anyone else who would come pick her up in the middle of the night. Chen Xinan looked coldly at her and asked, You want them to know what happened between us? You're not afraid of being made a laughingstock? Xin Haoyue didn't think of that, but still replied. Either way, they think it's impossible for us to be together, so no worries. Plus, you've told me that I'm already a laughingstock to everyone. Why would I be afraid if more people did? Chen Xinan maintained his icy stare. Humph. Well, you're positive. If I wasn't positive, who knows how many times I would have died by now? Xin Haoyue replied carelessly. In the past, when her parents fought over her father's affair, her mother had to stay in the hospital for a few months due to the beatings she suffered, and her father didn't even visit once. He abandoned the family for another woman without an ounce of shame, and she had to get several jobs to survive and pay her tuition. She thought of committing suicide, so she could be free from all her problems, all the hardship. But she knew life was still infinitely beautiful, and she could endure it no matter how terrible it was to her. Nothing seemed that bad. Xin Haoyue decided that she'd never hold those bad memories close to her heart. Even if she occasionally became upset or sullen, her emotions would shortly float away like smoke. The most important thing was to have hope. Nothing else mattered. As she seemed to straddle the line between joking and serious, Chen Xinan had no choice but to guess the validity of her statement. Xin Haoyue smiled, no longer wanting to think about it. It would probably be too difficult for her to return to her world anyways. The past wasn't important anymore. How about this? Let me borrow $200 now, and I'll have my brother return 10 times the amount. Chen Xinan could feel his pulse pounding in his temples. After Xin Haoyue finished, she discovered his expression turned gloomy. Did she say something wrong? Chen Xinan's demeanor showed his irritation as he said, Get on. Xin Haoyue shook her head. Get on. No. Chen Xinan was too tired to argue anymore, so he proceeded to bend over and carry her over his shoulder. Damn. Could you make me any angrier? This is how you carry a sack, not a woman. She felt the blood rushing to her head. Xin Haoyue slapped Chen Xinan's long legs, screaming, Hey, what are you doing? Put me down. I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be really, really sick. Chen Xinan, you better put me down. Chen Xinan shoved her in the car. It'd be so much easier if you were unconscious, he said through clenched teeth. You. Xin Haoyue sat in the passenger seat. Her face was almost abnormally flushed. She panted while leaning against the window, with only enough energy left to give Chen Xinan a murderous stare. Conversely, Chen Xinan didn't even have the energy to pay attention to her. If he treated her nicely, she'd quickly get out of hand again. Quickly. Don't you dare come out. Chen Xinan was once again speechless. Why was she treating him like he was ugly? Chen Xinan, who had never been disliked by others, gave Xin Haoyue one final sharp gaze before he turned around and sped off. Seeing his car finally drive off, Xin Haoyue let out a well-deserved sigh. She turned around with a smile to greet Xin Chancheng. Why are you back so early, brother? Xin Chancheng looked at the car disappearing into the night, before shifting his attention to her. I couldn't find you back then, and when I tried calling, I also realized that you didn't bring your phone. I forgot it. Xin Chancheng pointed in the direction of the car. Who was that? No one in particular, Xin Haoyue said, planning to change the topic. Brother, I want your help with something. What is it? The two talked as they strolled in. Xin Haoyue asked sincerely, Are there any ways to bring me somewhere, non-local? Somewhere non-local? Xin Chancheng didn't quite understand what she was saying. Xin Haoyue nodded before continuing. I want to leave Shengjin City, but I don't want to leave the country either. Life outside the country would be tiresome, and especially lonely if I was left by myself. As long as it isn't Shengjin City, I'd be fine with somewhere in the country as well. Wait, tell me the reason first. I don't want to be here because I don't want to see Chen Xinan, Xin Haoyue answered truthfully. She knew from the book that Xin Chancheng was against the two of them being together. She thought that if she told him she wanted to leave Chen Xinan, Xin Chancheng would help her no matter what. Xin Chancheng thought deeply before asking, You still like him? No. Xin Haoyue frantically waved her hands. It might have to do with what I did in the past. I don't remember anything, but I'm sure that what I did brought a lot of problems for me. I just want a peaceful life. A calm one. I'm not saying I want to drop out of school, but I want to learn in a different environment, in a place where no one knows me or Chen Xinan. When Xin Haoyue finished, still aware of Xin Cheng's hesitation, she promised, "Don't worry, brother. I will come back in 2 years at the longest. That's when I graduate. Mom and Dad won't be against it either that way." The only fear Xin Cheng had was that his parents wouldn't agree to this. They treated her like their treasure. She was only leaving for 2 years to gain experience and forget about Chen Xinan. Xin Cheng nodded in response. "Which city would you want to go to? Which cities are there?" Xin Haoyue thought, as if she was asking about different types of food. Xin Cheng raised his eyebrows. Was her memory the only thing his sister lost? Xin Haoyue seemed to understand his concern and laughed sheepishly. She had no choice. She wasn't even sure if this world had the cities she knew in her previous one. In order to disguise how dumb and uninformed she was, she said, "You can make the decision, brother." Then you should go over as an exchange student. That would be the best way." Xin Haoyue nodded again. "Right, not bad. When can you confirm the date?" Xin Cheng seemed pensive as he stared at her. "When would you like to leave?" "The quicker the better." Xin Haoyue thought about it. "Tomorrow is best. Wait, that feels a bit rushed. How about the day after?" 3 days from now. Xin Cheng decided to fix a time for his indecisive sister. Okay. As expected, Xin Haoyue agreed. The next day, she went to explain her plans to their parents. Though they couldn't bear to see her go, they eventually agreed, persuaded by the reasons Xin Haoyue had made up on the spot. Xin Cheng was made to prepare everything. When Xin Haoyue returned to school, she heard from Zhang Qin that there were 2 spots for exchange students to a college. No one knew who was going to arrive, but Xin Haoyue paid little attention to that. She, instead, started to admire Xin Cheng. He was handsome and acted professionally swift. By the evening, the department notified that besides Xin Haoyue, who was an exchange student, a senior sister in her 3rd year was able to take the remaining spot. That senior sister had exceptional grades and was very strong in all aspects. It was understandable that she was admitted. But what about Xin Haoyue? Why was she able to? When Xin Haoyue returned to the dorms, she heard some girls by the staircase who weren't happy about the decision. She softly laughed, giving no more than a slight glance in their direction and declaring, "Because I'm Xin Haoyue." Each and every girl's face turned sinister and ugly. Xin Haoyue shook her head. She couldn't be bothered to care about what they thought, but she did admit that she often bullied people based on their status. She had experienced 2 lives. Since ancient times, no one could choose their background. No one could choose the power they were born into. You were simply destined to work harder and endure more if you weren't lucky at birth. Xin Haoyue couldn't help but laugh. As expected, power and wealth were the good things in life. No wonder people relentlessly chased after them until death. Xin Haoyue packed her luggage when she returned, and when it was time to go, she was seen off by her entire family. Xin Haoyue listened to her parents' ramblings, making sure that she ate her meals on time, that she slept early, and similar rabble. She agreed to everything. "If you have any problems, call me or find a college's principal. I've already talked to him," Xin Cheng assured. "Okay, thank you, brother." As Xin Haoyue said her final goodbyes, she felt all manner of feelings swell up in her heart. Other than a slight distaste for the situation, all in all, she was looking forward to what awaited her. A new day would shine. Xin Haoyue had only lived in a college for a week, but she was already beginning to think that the quality of life and education here was much better than college life in Shengjing City. In Shengjing City, all the students' attention would be on her because of Chen Xinan. Even if they'd never forget her, it was only because of everything she had done in the past. When she was reading the book, she felt like the second female lead always had disaster by her side. But now that she had become the lead, oh, how irritating it was for others to constantly remind you of your tumultuous past. So the change in environment made her feel amazing, beautiful, even. Xin Cheng already talked to her department's teachers and a college's principal, so they all took care of her. The students also occasionally helped her out, most likely in order to show her the best of the school's hospitality. Xin Haoyue sighed, thinking that this was how a normal school life should be like. During the first few days following her arrival, her popularity grew quickly. Not only was she beautiful, but it was rare that someone like her openly enjoyed learning. Most importantly, she was easy to get along with. She would greet every teacher and peer she came across sweetly and without ever failing to. Over time, she had left a favorable impression on everyone. Xin Haoyue was incomparably happy. It was a good decision to come to a city. Her days were bright and fulfilling. When Zhang Qin called her and heard about how well things were going at a college, he had the urge to fly over and seek shelter there as well. Xin Haoyue felt that she learned a lot from a college, as she surrounded herself with good, diligent people. She had improved in all manner of ways. When she moved to a city, she immediately contacted her new dance and piano teacher on her second day there. Her plan was to take 2 to 3 hours every night to learn both. In the past, Xin Haoyue never learned how to dance. Her movements felt rigid, but since her body was originally the second female lead's, it had already become accustomed to dancing at a young age. Much to her surprise, it wasn't hard to do pirouettes or even splits and the like. As she learned, she could feel her senses sharpening when she heard music. She often didn't know what move to do, but it was as if her body made the decision for her. The frequent praise Xin Haoyue received from her teacher made her truly happy. Meanwhile, Chen Xinan and Mao Xiyuan were getting ready for their new company and were extremely busy. Chen Xinan stood at the forefront of the huge Shen company, bogged with work nearly 100% of the time. He made a habit of drinking coffee at night when returning from business trips. One night, Mao Xiyuan couldn't help but warn him. Work is important, but you shouldn't treat your body like it isn't. Chen Xinan placed his mug down, not once breaking his attention from his files as he absently replied, I know. Mao Xiyuan knew it wasn't a sincere response. He leaned by the corner of Chen Xinan's desk and stared at the workaholic. I really should find a woman to take care of you. Chen Xinan naturally didn't bother with him. Mao Xiyuan thought carefully before saying, Sheng Wenyang is in America, and who knows when she'll come back. Meanwhile, Xin Haoyue is in a city. She said she'd be back in 2 years, but who knows? It's still closer than America, though. If I want to call her. Chen Xinan raised his head and looked sharply at him, stopping his train of thought. She went to a city? He asked. She? The sudden question had stunned Mao Xiyuan, and it took a moment for him to realize that Chen Xinan was asking about Xin Haoyue. He could only nod stiffly under such an intense gaze. Mao Xiyuan felt it was odd how Chen Xinan's expression changed so suddenly. He pondered more before asking, You didn't know that she went to a college as an exchange student? Chen Xinan quickly lost the energy he previously demonstrated. How come I never heard that our school and a college's school had this type of friendship? He asked, with his gaze still set on Mao Xiyuan. After hearing Chen Xinan's question, Mao Xiyuan was suddenly reminded of what he was going to say before being interrupted. I really don't think I'd be saying this if you didn't remind me, but our school has never cooperated with a college. This is the first time, and what a coincidence that Xin Haoyue took the opportunity to move. That was one hell of a coincidence. What coincidence? Someone definitely made it happen, and it was either Xin Haoyue or Xin Chancheng. Chen Xinan thought to himself, as his demeanor turned icy. She probably couldn't have done it, given how unintelligent she acted. Xin Chancheng must have been the one. What was the point? Was it to avoid him? The more Chen Xinan thought, the more he thought it was true. Lately, Xin Haoyue wanted to convey only one thing, and it was that she wanted nothing to do with him. Why did she suddenly change her major? Why did she suddenly move out of her apartment? Wasn't it obvious enough when she decided to escape Shenzhen City to a city while he was on a business trip? The thought spun in his head, giving him the kind of pensive gaze he would never have otherwise. What she said by the road was true, and she was quick to do what she said. Oof, Xin Haoyue, I'll admit you have some tact. Mao Xiyuan was close enough to feel the strong, imposing emotions that Chen Xinan was practically exuding. He quietly retreated back by a few steps and mustered the courage to ask, Are you angry? Normally Chen Xinan wouldn't be angry. Those who made him angry would suffer from his wrath, and he would use everything at his disposal to make sure they did. Why would I be angry? Xin Haoyue, that woman, is it worth the time I'd spend being angry? If she wants to run away, then let her run away. I'd like to see where she runs off to, Chen Xinan replied. Hearing the dark, unfiltered spite in Chen Xinan's voice nearly turned Mao Xiyuan to stone. Xin Haoyue, in a city, sneezed at the same time. Everything was good in a city, but was just a bit too hot in the summer. Her class had many cases of heatstroke. Xin Haoyue tried avoiding it as best she could, even to the point of spending half an hour in the evening to go for a run, but she had heatstroke as well. Being sick in the summer was no laughing matter. Her body alternated between burning hot and cripplingly cold, and she constantly felt dizzy and robbed of energy. Xin Haoyue stayed in the dorms for half a day, took some medicine and went to sleep. A fever even appeared, but she didn't feel any better. Xin Haoyue figured she needed to go to the hospital, but she didn't even have the energy to flag a taxi. Instead, she called 120, and when the rescue workers arrived, she made herself proud by opening the door in her weakly state. After that last display of willpower, she was completely passed out well before arriving at the hospital. She had no idea how long she slept. She was at the hospital when she woke. It was the middle of the night, and the place was empty. She noticed that her IV was almost done and pressed a service bell to signal her nurse to pull the needle out. When the nurse saw her finally awake, she smiled and said, Well, you're calm. You were gravely ill, but you didn't come to the hospital until it got this bad. All Xin Haoyue had the energy for was to feel her chapped lips. She couldn't respond and only thought about rolling her eyes. She didn't have the energy to do that either, of course. If she knew that sickness could be so harsh, she would have gone to the hospital immediately. To think that her new body would disappoint her in such a way? When she was sick in the past, she had gotten halfway better, just from sleeping. Xin Haoyue concluded that wealthy children had naturally fragile bodies. The nurse saw that she hadn't fully recovered yet and reminded her again, It's really not good for you to be alone right now. Call your parents and have them come over. Xin Haoyue didn't want to call. They were at Shenzhen City anyway, and there was no point in making them worried. When the nurse saw the reluctant look in her young patient's eyes, she decided to ask, "Are your parents not here?" Xin Haoyue thought that the nurse really understood her, so she nodded her head. "Do you have a boyfriend? If you do, call him over. If not, call your classmates," the nurse continued. "Thank you," Xin Haoyue said, stopping the nurse from saying any more. She had no boyfriend, and she'd just met her classmates for a week. She felt embarrassed having someone take care of her in the middle of the night. Xin Haoyue had nothing to do, so she went back to sleep, only waking up the second day from hunger. The rumbling of her stomach was becoming unbearable, but she couldn't go out herself, so she thought about getting her nurse to bring some light food for her instead. She had just pressed the service bell when her door suddenly opened. Xin Haoyue was taken aback by how fast it swung open when she was suddenly greeted by the sight of a particular noblewoman standing by the door. It's Chen Xinan's mother, Wang Yinlin. Xin Haoyue was shocked. Why did Wang Yinlin appear in her room? Unable to react, she stared wide-eyed at the woman wearing a light purple dress. Behind her were her secretary and driver. As she entered, the exquisite handbag she held came into view and left Xin Haoyue silently awed. Her grandiose fashion paired perfectly with such an elegant figure. But no matter what she wore, she was pleasing to the eyes. Seeing as the bedridden woman before her was awestruck, Wang Yinlin smiled and said, "Hello, Miss Xin. Do you still remember me? We met before." Xin Haoyue nodded stiffly. She didn't understand why Wang Yinlin wanted to see her. Wang Yinlin laughed. "Yesterday, I was at the hospital for some business and saw the doctors push you into the emergency room. I thought it was you, but didn't dare to be certain. After finding the doctor and making sure, I came to visit. Have I disturbed you, Miss Xin?" Xin Haoyue's heart trembled at how polite and respectful Wang Yinlin was. Wasn't Wang Yinlin swift and decisive, commanding her speech with an overbearing tone? Why was she speaking like that? Xin Haoyue didn't know how things could have turned so wrong. Even the setup was wrong. Completely wrong. Every time Wang Yinlin talked with the female lead, sparks flew and blood spilled by the gallon. But now that she was acting so amicable, Xin Haoyue was terrified. Should she call Xin Qiancheng and ask for help? She wondered where her phone even was. She looked all around and discovered that she didn't bring it. Again. Shoot. Wang Yinlin observed how Xin Haoyue's eyes sparkled occasionally, even though her face was sickly pale. "How did you become like this?" she asked concerningly. She then proceeded to give orders to her secretary, all of them pertaining to Xin Haoyue. The demands included everything from preparing her meals to nursing her body. Xin Haoyue grew increasingly frightened as she saw it all unfold, wondering if there was a trap waiting for her behind Wang Yinlin's kindness. Indeed, Wang Yinlin dug a trap for her son and was waiting for him to jump into it. After meeting with the Lai family, Wang Yinlin noticed that her son had secretly left. She chased after him, only to see him and Xin Qiancheng bickering with one another as soon as they met. At that time, she heard Chen Xinan say, "My mother said that Xin family is pretty good and that the young miss of Xin family is very lovable." Wang Yinlin swore that she had never said those words before. She clearly understood her son whom she had carried in her womb for 10 months. He definitely wasn't one to lie, unless he used it as a means to torment someone. She had heard of the Xin family. They were considered to be a wealthy family in Shenzhen City. Compared to many famous families who were arduously working their way up the financial ladder, they were quite a normal family. Was her son interested in the young miss of Xin family? The fact that she heard a female name from Chen Xinan's mouth was already unbelievable enough. Wang Yinlin quietly ordered for her subordinates to investigate the young miss from the Xin family. However, she was surprised when she found out that this family's young miss was her son's neighbor. Her instincts told her that the two knew each other from way back then, and as expected, she was right. Wang Yinlin was surprised that Xin Haoyue was originally very interested in her son. But lately, she had been rejecting his contact after having an accident. This mother thought that this was quite amusing, so she ordered someone to pay attention to Xin Haoyue's actions. Xin Haoyue had unexpectedly become an exchange student in a city. Coincidentally, Wang Yinlin made a huge investment in a movie and wanted to pick out a female lead from a school in a city. Besides, there was also a director in a city who had picked out some people as a potential female lead in the movie, so she had come to a city to take a look. Of course, there were staff members who could have helped her pick out the female lead, so she didn't have to personally come to a city. However, the main reason she had traveled personally to the city wasn't to help pick out a female lead, but to meet Xin Haoyue. She wanted to know more about her background, and more importantly, she wanted to see if Xin Haoyue could be a potential candidate as her daughter-in-law. When she saw Xin Haoyue's pitiful and tragic appearance, she thought that she wasn't a bad candidate. She looked delicate and fragile. Her son was someone who didn't know how to be considerate, and these types of girls made it easier to arouse his feeling of protection. She was a powerful and independent woman, so she wished that her daughter-in-law was someone with the complete opposite personality. It's best if she had a gentler personality so it would be easier to get along with her. Not bad, not bad. At least, Wang Yinlin didn't detect anything bad from this meeting. When she came out of the hospital room, she called Chen Xinan. Wang Yinlin didn't go straight to the point either. She just smiled and said, I am at a city right now. Because of all sorts of award ceremonies, Wang Yinlin had flown all around the world countless times. She could appear in one city in the morning and another city in the afternoon, but she never called him to tell him about her journey. Chen Xinan had an important meeting in a few minutes, so he asked expressionlessly, Mother, what are you up to again? Wang Yinlin already knew that he would be sensitive to her teasing, but she still tried to tease him. Guess who I saw in a city's hospital? When I saw her, she looked rather pitiful. She was sick to the point that she almost fainted. The girl rode the ambulance to the hospital alone, and without even someone to take care of her by her side. Seeing her pale face really made my heart ache for her. Chen Xinan frowned. What do you really intend to say? Wang Yinlin said, I almost forgot that Feng Dao wanted to discuss the casting process with me. Bye. After she finished talking, she hung up on him. Chen Xinan glanced at the phone after Wang Yinlin had hung up on him. He felt like she had an ulterior motive when she had called him. A city? Hospital? Someone both he and Wang Yinlin knew? After he thought about it for a while, he finally realized who she was talking about. He leaned against the back of the black chair and swiveled the chair. After glancing at his phone thoughtfully, he can't help but yell, Serves you right. After the phone call, Wang Yinlin was looking forward to seeing what Chen Xinan would do. Would he immediately call her back, or would he personally come to her and demand to know what happened? However, what disappointed her was that even after quite a while, Chen Xinan didn't take any actions. Wang Yinlin hurriedly made another call to him. This is bad. The doctor said that Xin Haoyue's illness has relapsed. I'm afraid her illness has become even more serious. Chen Xinan lazily replied, Aren't you there with her? Since you pity her so much, would you actually leave her alone? After he finished attending a meeting, Chen Xinan was finally able to calm himself down. The phone call from Wang Yinlin this morning might have been a trick she was playing on him. Xin Chancheng had sent Xin Haoyue to a city. How would he leave her to die? Wang Yinlin wondered whether she had given birth to a cold-blooded child. She said, Since you don't want to come here and see her for the last time, then forget about it. After she finished talking, she hung up the phone with a depressed expression on her face. Could it be that her guess was wrong? When Wang Yinlin went to visit Xin Haoyue in the evening, Xin Haoyue noticed that the girl looked even more upset than she was that morning. Wang Yinlin sat down and chatted with her. Xin Haoyue was frightened, but she sincerely asked, Auntie, why did you come here? They weren't familiar with each other. Wang Yinlin smiled and said, I've been away in a foreign country for so long, it's always nice to meet up with an old friend. Xin Haoyue forced herself to smile. They've only met once, and they had never said anything to each other before, yet they're considered to be old friends? In spite of the awkwardness, Wang Yinlin continued to smile. She asked, I've heard that you've chased after Nan before? When Xin Haoyue heard the question, she immediately waved her hand. She tried to clear her name and said, No. After I had fallen and hit my head, I've forgotten everything. It's probably because I was still young and didn't know any better, so I did some embarrassing things. Auntie, towards Chen Xinan, no, I meant to have no inappropriate ideas regarding Senior Chen. You have no inappropriate ideas regarding Nan? Wang Yinlin asked strangely. Yeah, I don't have any. Xin Haoyue quickly explained. He is too outstanding. How can someone like me chase after him? It's best if I don't force it. What's more, isn't there still shame? Huh? When Wang Yinlin saw that the girl had intentionally stopped talking mid-sentence, so she thoughtlessly gestured for her to continue talking. Xin Haoyue had a close call. She almost revealed the existence of Sheng Wenyang. Chen Xinan and his family should resolve this and talk about this among themselves. As a result, Xin Haoyue tried to conceal her earlier slip-up by saying, Nothing, Auntie. Thank you for taking care of me. When I am discharged from the hospital, I will tell my parents and let them thank you. You're welcome. We are brought together by fate, otherwise, we wouldn't have met. When Xin Haoyue saw that Wang Yinlin had put her hand on her right hand, she was frightened to the point that she got goosebumps all over her body. Oh my God, can you stop acting so kind and gentle? The difference between your attitude was too drastic. It's making me afraid. Xin Haoyue tried her best to deal with Wang Yinlin. When she saw that Wang Yinlin had finally left her hospital room, she let out a sigh of relief the moment the door closed. She was exhausted as she laid down on her bed. That was too tiring. Xin Haoyue can't figure out what Wang Yinlin wanted to do. Because she was so nervous and tense that night, when she fell asleep, she dreamt of the Chen family and Wang Yinlin. Xin Haoyue dreamt of Wang Yinlin scolding her. She dreamt that she was working as a slave in the Chen family while Wang Yinlin ordered her around. The scene changed, and she was kneeling in front of the Chen family's gate. While she faced the tightly closed golden gate, she kowtowed again and again as she tearfully shouted Chen Xinan's name, begging him to let the Xin family off. In the dark room, there was no light source besides the occasional ray of light from the moonlight when the curtains swayed to the side. In the small and quiet room, the smell of disinfectant water was clear and distinct. Chen Xinan was still in formal attire when he arrived in her hospital room. He was still dusty from rushing here. Chen Xinan expressionlessly looked down at the unconscious person on the bed. Chen Xinan saw that Xin Haoyue looked very uncomfortable, so he leaned towards her and reached out one of his hands to feel the temperature of her forehead. However, before his hand touched her, he heard her say, "No, no, Chen Xinan, I beg you, please let me go." Chen Xinan was stunned, and his hand froze in midair. He had heard her say those words before. When she had moved out of the apartment complex, she had said those words to him. After she said those words to him, she left Shenzhen City. She looked happier and more at ease after she left and went to a city. The expression on Chen Xinan's face turned cold as he stared at her. He saw her expression turn more and more uneasy and fearful, to the point where he could almost hear her cry. Chen Xinan narrowed his eyes and slightly leaned down again. He reached out one of his hands and stroked her forehead, which was drenched in sweat and burning hot. He immediately pressed the service bell and tried to wake her up. "Xin Haoyue, wake up! Wake up! Chen Xinan, I beg of you, please." It seemed like she still hadn't awakened from her nightmare as she tightly clung onto his sleeve and stained his clothes with her tears. When Chen Xinan turned on the light, he saw that her face was very pale. She was biting her lips as tears drops continuously flowed out from the corners of her eyes. He quickly helped her into his embrace and tried to coax her. Okay, I will agree to whatever you say." Xin Haoyue couldn't hear a thing as she was still immersed in her nightmare. Chen Xinan wanted to wake her up, but his efforts were in vain. When the doctor finally came, Xin Haoyue finally calmed down and quietly fell asleep after he gave her a shot. Chen Xinan saw that she had stopped crying, but the tear marks on her face had not dried up yet. Without saying another word, he directly said, "Give her the paperwork to transfer to another hospital." What? The doctor still didn't understand what was going on. Chen Xinan ignored the doctor and directly called his assistant to contact the best doctor in his city. Xin Haoyue, who remained asleep, didn't know that she had changed hospitals because of Chen Xinan. When she finally awakened, she was struck with a terrible headache. There was a buzzing sound in her head, while a sticky and uncomfortable feeling spread all over her body. In a daze, Xin Haoyue opened her eyes. She wanted to push away her blanket because it was too hot. When she raised her arm to push away her blanket, she was restrained by the person beside her. "Stop!" This voice. Xin Haoyue's body stiffened when she heard the voice. She slowly raised her head, and just as she had expected, she came face to face with the person from her dream. Xin Haoyue immediately remembered the terrifying nightmare she had last night. It seemed so real that it looked as if it was about to happen to her. Afraid, she hurriedly pushed Chen Xinan away from her, but she didn't know that there was an IV drip attached to her other arm. Just as she pushed him away, she had accidentally pulled out the needle from her other arm. The pain from forcefully pulling the needle out made her wrinkle her eyebrows in pain. "Have you gone crazy? Just doing this and you still dare come?" Xin Haoyue almost couldn't breathe. Oh my god, why was Chen Xinan here? She remembered how miserable she was in her dream last night. Now, right after she woke up, the first person she saw was him. She released a sigh and asked in a dissatisfied manner, "Why are you here?" Chen Xinan's fingers were pressed against the back of her hands. He could clearly feel that the temperature of her hand was different from what it would normally be. However, once he heard her interrogative tone, he became upset. Isn't this what he should be asking her? Why did she decide to leave Shenzhen City and come to this godforsaken place? Chen Xinan was very unhappy, so despite the fact that Xin Haoyue waited for a long time, she still received no reply. She gave up on his answer and thought, "Oof, you don't want to say it? I don't want to know the reason anyways." The two people remained silent for a moment and the atmosphere gradually turned strange. In a short while, Xin Haoyue broke the stalemate. "Chen Xinan, help me call Xin Chancheng." Eh? Chen Xinan stared at her and noticed that she leaned against the bed with a pale face. She looked as if she had nothing to live for. Xin Haoyue slowly opened her eyes and said, "Have my brother come over and take care of me." She knew that if she called her brother, he would come over and arrange someone else to take care of his matters, even if he was extremely busy. Xin Haoyue didn't want to contact him before because she didn't want to trouble him. However, that would still be better than having Chen Xinan by her side. Chen Xinan had deliberately changed his plans, pushed back his meetings, and rushed over. Around midnight, when he had arrived, he hadn't even bothered to book lodging. He had gone directly to the hospital to find her. He then transferred her to another hospital, found the best doctor for her, and accompanied her for the rest of the night. However, when she woke up, she didn't even recognize his efforts. This was such an eye-opener. Chen Xinan didn't care about whether or not the back of her hand was still bleeding. He stood up, folded his arms across his chest, and coldly gazed down at her. "Xin Haoyue, the word heartless really does suit you." Xin Haoyue was stupefied. "What do you mean by that?" "The literal meaning." Chen Xinan walked to the side and picked up his suit jacket. He exited the hospital room without looking back. "I'm not kind enough to help you call Xin Chancheng. Whether you're dead or alive has nothing to do with me." This irritating attitude and tone, Xin Haoyue leaned against the bed and felt that she was angered to the point where all her internal organs were steaming. She didn't think before firing back. You really think too highly of yourself. Whether I'm alive or dead, did it ever had anything to do with you? Chen Xinan, don't try to fool around with me anymore. I will live much better that way. Ha! Chen Xinan snorted and left without looking back. When had he ever fooled around with her? The one who was always trying to entangle with him was her. Her words seriously caused people to be angry. At that time, his brain must have really been confused, causing him to run all the way to City A to listen to her biting sarcasm. After Chen Xinan left the hospital room, he closed the door with a loud bang, leaving Xin Haoyue shocked inside. She didn't understand. Why was Chen Xinan so angry? There's no need to bother about him. Anyways, he was indisputably the male lead. It was fine if he doesn't appear before her. After Xin Haoyue finished thinking, she pressed the service bell. When the nurse came in, she asked in bewilderment, "How come the nurse from yesterday did not come?" The nurse displayed a professional smile. After hearing Xin Haoyue's words, she turned to her and replied, "After you came in last night, I was the one who took care of you." Ah? Xin Haoyue finally reacted and looked at her surroundings. It was different from the one she was in before. She hesitated a bit before asking, "So I had transferred rooms?" "No. You came here in the middle of the night yesterday." Xin Haoyue was shocked. "Who helped me transfer hospitals?" She was quite comfortable there. How come she was suddenly transferred? The serious nurse glanced at her and cleaned the remaining traces of blood around her stitches. She replied in an even tone, "Your boyfriend." Boyfriend? Xin Haoyue felt like she was struck by lightning. Who was the boyfriend? Chen Xinan? What sort of conspiracy was Chen Xinan trying to plan? Xin Haoyue felt that it had something to do with his mother. Otherwise, how can two busy adults appear at the same time in City A? Xin Haoyue did not have the energy to think about it. She was incredibly hungry and couldn't wait to have breakfast. Surprisingly, a man wearing a suit was the one who delivered it to her. Xin Haoyue saw that the man looked to be around 27 years old. Although he had an honest air about him, she would not eat anything of an unknown origin. The man knew that and was prepared. "I am Mrs. Chen's assistant, and I'm here to deliver food to Miss Xin." "Wang Yinlin told you to send it?" The assistant was stunned to hear her directly call out the name of the boss's mother. He lightly nodded. Xin Haoyue bit her lip and hesitated on whether or not to eat. "Wang? No, auntie. Why did she ask you to bring breakfast for me? In the past, wasn't it the nurse auntie who've always sent it?" The assistant blushed in shame. He hurriedly made up a lie. "It's just that she wasn't feeling well today." Xin Haoyue had some doubts. However, when she tasted the porridge, she found that it was very delicious. She couldn't help but eat a few extra bites. After the assistant left the hospital, he went to the parking lot. Just as he entered the car, he hurriedly turned his head and saw the face of his boss sitting in the back seat. His expression was very gloomy. It seems like he shouldn't be provoked. In the small enclosed space of the car, the atmosphere was tense and scary. While the assistant was trying to be smart by keeping silent, he heard his boss asked without raising his head, "Have you eaten?" The assistant subconsciously wanted to say no. He had gone more than halfway across a city to buy breakfast, and he had to wait in line for a long time before he was able to order breakfast. Yet he wasn't even able to eat a bite of it. However, the no in his mouth was quickly changed to, "I have eaten." He would only think that his boss was truly concerned about him if there was a hole in his brain. His boss was clearly trying to ask about the young lady in the VIP ward. After Chen Xinan heard his reply, his gaze turned unclear. No longer wanting to continue the conversation, he switched the topic and said, "Call Xin Qiancheng and explain to him about the current situation." A "say what" almost flew from the assistant out of impulse. He knew that if he really did say that, he would have to pack up and go home afterwards. So, he pretended to calmly nod his head. After Xin Qiancheng received the call, he was left speechless. He immediately called Xin Haoyue, but her phone was turned off. At dusk, Xin Haoyue leaned against the window in boredom and stared out at the sunset. Suddenly, the door to her room was pushed open by someone rushing in. She turned in surprise and was met with a black-faced Xin Qiancheng who had a scary look in his eyes. She disappointingly shrank back her shoulders, then used a fawning tone. "Brother, why did you come?" After Xin Qiancheng learned that she had been sick for so long without contacting anyone, he was extremely angry. He wanted to crack open her head to see what was stuffed in there. "Xin Haoyue, you are preposterous. If you dare to hide such a big matter again, you should roll back to Shenzhen City. What does one Chen Xinan count as? If you want to avoid him, there are thousands of other methods you can use to do so. You don't need to go through this much pain." Xin Qiancheng thought about how their parents had protected her, cradled her in the palm of their hands since she was young, and how pained they felt about her going off abroad to study by herself. That was still fine, but falling sick for so many days and not contacting anyone was not. However, Xin Haoyue didn't think like that. In the past, while she was studying abroad by herself, it was a normal thing for her to take care of everything herself whenever she fell sick. How come Chen Xinan and Xin Qiancheng were acting so abnormal? Xin Haoyue quickly put on a smile and followed up. "Brother, there's nothing wrong about me. Look, don't I look just fine?" Xin Qiancheng glared at her and said, "You shut up." Xin Haoyue wanted to spit but had no choice other than to obediently shut up. Even though she felt that she can be discharged tomorrow with no problems, Xin Chanchang still made her go through a full-body exam. She was only discharged after Xin Chanchang received the report saying that everything was normal. Unfortunately, on the day of her discharge, Wang Yinlin purposefully came in to visit her. Xin Haoyue was panic-stricken. "Chen Mama, what situation is this?" Wang Yinlin was disappointed at her useless son. She knew that he was on the plane to a city and verified that he went to the hospital afterward. She thought excitedly that she should leave some privacy for the couples to interact with each other for a few days. Wang Yinlin was busy with casting, so when she remembered to ask about the progress between the two, she found out that several people discovered Chen Xinan's trip to a city on the first day he arrived. Due to that, he was so busy that he didn't go to the hospital at all on the second day in a city. Even though he's still in a city, it looked like he came here for work by making himself as busy as the president of a country. Wang Yinlin called him and asked him what happened. With his stubborn temper, he replied, "You don't have to care about this affair, and even if you do, there's not going to be any result." Humph, she doesn't care about him. He would not rush to coax her. However, Chen Xinan's assistant felt that his boss was very hard to endure this time. His personality was already cold, and now under this intense pressure, he doesn't want anyone to survive. Wang Yinlin's tone towards him was puzzled. After pondering about it for a while, the only way to explain the strange situation was that the couple was fighting. Since she can't get any information from Chen Xinan, she can only find Xin Haoyue. But when she arrived at the hospital, Xin Haoyue was leaving the building. Xin Chancheng helped his sister carry a little luggage and some of the prescription drugs. When he saw Wang Yinlin approaching them, he just glanced at Xin Haoyue with a questioning expression. The only thing Xin Haoyue could do was smile and reply, "It's Auntie Chen." Wang Yinlin glimpsed at Xin Chancheng and turned to ask Xin Haoyue, "Have you fully recovered?" "Thank you, Auntie Chen. I'm fine." Xin Haoyue was apprehensive on the inside. Wang Yinlin continued to smile and said, "I rarely come here. Maybe we should eat dinner together." Xin Haoyue was thinking about rejecting the offer tactfully, but Xin Chang was very direct. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for the thought, but my sister just recovered. There are some foods she can't eat." Wang Yinlin replied immediately, "Of course, I asked someone to prepare you some healthy recipes. They're just waiting for you." "Auntie Chen, thank you. You don't have to be this kind. It's too much trouble for you." "Not at all. My son happens to be at a city. Tonight we can—" Wang Yinlin just realized that this was the first time she had mentioned her son's name. Both the Xing siblings restrained their negative expression at the same time. Not waiting for her to finish, she heard Xin Haoyue said in a weak yet firm voice, "Auntie Chen, I think you've mistaken something." "Yes?" Xin Haoyue smiled faintly. "Chen, there's nothing going on between Senior Chen and me. We don't have any relationship. We are not even considered friends. Auntie is being too nice to me and I feel a little anxious." Wang Yinlin doesn't believe it. "I remember him. Auntie Chen, Senior Chen already likes someone else. You can ask him directly if you want to know." "No need to ask." A deep voice took over right after Xin Haoyue finished her sentence. Xin Haoyue was startled and turned her head guiltily. She discovered that Chen Xinan had suddenly come out of nowhere. "Oh my god, I'm in huge trouble." It was 10 a.m. on a hot summer day. Under the sun's harsh heat, Xin Haoyue was already sweating even though she only stood by the car for a few minutes. Although she should have sensed the burning heat from the sun, for some reason, she felt the air around her turn cold, and her hands felt frozen. Xin Haoyue's sharp eyes followed Chen Xinan closely. She was afraid that he was going to lose his mind and do something harmful to her. She clearly saw him gnash his teeth when he had said, "No need to ask." Aside from that, she also sensed his anger. Xin Haoyue was unaware as to why he was angry. As she tried to figure out why he was so mad, she finally came to the conclusion that it must be due to her accidental mention of the female lead's existence. In the novel, Chen Xinan had concealed the existence of the female lead from the Chen family's elders for so many years just to protect her. As Xin Haoyue continued to ponder about this, she became more certain that she had crossed his bottom line. She stared at him without moving her eyes. Xin Haoyue saw him walk next to Wang Yinlin with a gloomy face. He asked his mother if she was leaving, and even offered to drive her. Wang Yinlin was also good at observing others. Although the two of them had only exchanged a sentence with each other, after she examined their expressions, she can already guess that they were bickering. At least she hadn't seen her son this angry for many years. Wang Yinlin thought for a while before she nodded her head, told them that she was leaving now. Then, she turned to Xin Haoyue and said, "Take care of yourself. I will come again once I get a chance." Xin Haoyue nodded her head, but she was already overwhelmed on the inside. She thought, "Auntie, can you stop tormenting me and just let me survive on my own? I just want to live peacefully." Wang Yinlin had no idea what she was thinking. She only saw sadness reflected in Xin Haoyue's bright eyes. The young girl looked more and more pitiful, the more she stared at her. As Wang Yinlin prepared to leave, she gave Chen Xinan a deadly look. "It's all your fault." Xin Haoyue wanted Chen Xinan to go as quickly as possible. When she saw that Wang Yinlin was ready to leave, she was about to tell Xin Chencheng to quickly leave as well. However, before she had the chance to even talk, she heard a threat from behind. Xin Haoyue, you better not see me again, or else I would never. Chen Xinan stopped his sentence midway for a long time and he still didn't finish the sentence. Xin Haoyue turned around to look at him fearfully and saw him staring at her with his sharp eyes. That sharp expression, it looked as if he wanted to kill her as soon as possible. Bah! Xin Haoyue clearly felt her heartbeat accelerated. That was scary. After being scared by him, fear was reflected on her small face. Her originally thin face, caused by the sickness, was now pale white after his threat. Chen Xinan looked at her pale face and grind his teeth secretly. He left without looking back. Humph! Out of sight, out of mind. Xin Haoyue was utterly confused. What did he mean by only saying half of a threat? After seeing the two people finally wrap up their business, Xin Chencheng walked over to Xin Haoyue's side. That was when he noticed that her complexion was worse than before. His expression turned ghastly, and he scolded. He has already left. Are you still going to stay daydreaming? Xin Haoyue's flickering look was not out of nostalgia, but out of confusion. If she appeared in front of him again, what would he do to her? Xin Haoyue thought over the ending of the book and her dreams. She realized that no matter which ending, neither of them was a desirable ending for her. She sighed and turned to follow Xin Chencheng back to the car, then asked hesitantly, Brother, should I go abroad? If she goes abroad and not come back, at the very least, she wouldn't see Chen Xinan again. Xin Chencheng rolled his eyes at her. You've already tortured yourself to this point by just going out of the city. Don't even think about going abroad. Xin Haoyue laid on the seat at the back of the car and sighed leisurely. It turns out that even if you have wealth and a happy family, trouble will still find you. She needed to prevent Chen Xinan from destroying all her happiness every second. Xin Haoyue's sorrowful look made Xin Chencheng a bit annoyed. You still can't forget about him? Xin Haoyue was still immersed in her own thoughts, so she replied without thinking. Him? Who? Xin Chencheng glanced at her, and the expression on his face was basically saying, Pretend. Continue pretending. Xin Haoyue sighed stressfully. You mean Chen Xinan? Why can't I forget about him? Oh, actually, if you have to say I can't forget about him, then it must be that I'm afraid he would kill me someday, as if he's crushing an ant. Xin Chencheng disagreed. Even if he doesn't like you, he doesn't have to be so narrow-minded that he needs to kill you. Also, did you forget that you have support from the Xin family? Xin Haoyue didn't forget, but she also remembered how Xin's family was like an unstable building. It fell so easily when Chen Xinan moved his fingers. She didn't know how to explain everything to Xin Chencheng, so she said, Sometimes, it's just better to have a backup plan. Xin Chencheng looked at her intensely and said after a while, I think you got sick this time because of grieving. You never thought so much before. How come after you fell, you changed entirely? Xin Chencheng often doubted if she was his biological sister. But her look and appearance, if it's not her, then who is it? Xin Haoyue can't help but replied, I also hope that I'm just overthinking. Xin Chencheng saw that she was still lifeless. He thought of something and asked, Was what you told Wang Yinlin true? What did I say? Xin Haoyue didn't know what he was talking about. Xin Chencheng stared at her and lazily asked, Chen Xinan likes someone? Xin Haoyue nodded. Yeah, the whole school knows. Xin Chencheng looked at her suspiciously. He had asked someone to go to the school to find some information, but all the gossip in the academy was all about Xin Haoyue. Xin Haoyue said Chen Xinan and Sheng Wenyang are a perfect couple. Sheng Wenyang? Yeah, she went abroad, but she will be back in 2 years. How do you know? After she was questioned by Xin Chencheng, Xin Haoyue realized that she accidentally slipped up, so she explained laughingly. Mao Xiuan said that. Oh, he's Chen Xinan's friend. Is his last name Mao? Xin Chencheng asked with a frown face. Xin Haoyue didn't think too much of it and only nodded. Yeah, why? Do you know him? Xin Chencheng only looked at her meaningfully. Of course he knew who Mao Xiuan was. In order for Xin Haoyue to get closer to Chen Xinan, she had bothered Mao Xiuan the most before. However, being close friends with Chen Xinan wasn't a good thing. Don't get too close to him. Xin Chencheng said while driving. Xin Haoyue didn't think it matters since they wouldn't often meet each other, so she replied readily, Okay. After Xin Haoyue left the hospital, Xin Chencheng stayed in a city 2 more days. But due to his continuously accumulating work, he had to rush back to Shengjin City. If the same thing happens again next time, you are going back to Shengjin City and don't ever think about going anywhere again. Xin Chencheng said as he was about to leave. Xin Haoyue wisely nodded her head and pretended to be obedient. Okay, I will promise to eat and exercise every day. I will take care of my body. Xin Chencheng glanced at her. He was clearly not convinced by her words. But he found her a reliable housemaid before he left. Xin Chencheng told the housemaid to cook for Xin Haoyue 3 times a day and help her clean the house. Xin Haoyue became speechless. It wasn't like she didn't know how to do those chores. But when she argued with Xin Chencheng, he replied coldly, The only thing in your refrigerator are noodles. Do you think I can trust you? Xin Haoyue forced herself to smile. She really knew how to cook, but she thought that it was just too much work and a waste of time, so she usually ate meals that were easy to cook. Who would have thought that her brother would actually underestimate her cooking skills? Xin Haoyue believed it was about time for her to show off her skills and scare him to death. After Xin Chancheng left, Xin Haoyue's life went back to normal. She went to school in the morning and learned to dance and to play the piano at night. To sum it up, she was pretty busy. The same happened to Chen Xinan. After he returned to Shenzhen City, he was extremely busy. He often worked overtime and constantly engaged in social activities related to his business. In the middle of June, the new company was finally established. Chen Xinan didn't go to the official establishment event of his company. He simply left all the work to the person in charge, Mao Xiyuan. Feeling perplexed, Mao Xiyuan asked, "You founded the company, so why aren't you attending such an important event?" Chen Xinan simply replied, "I just want to see how far the company can go without Chen family's protection." Mao Xiyuan understood part of his intention, but he didn't fully understand everything. Why was he trying to prove his own capabilities when the continuously growing Chen company was the best proof of his abilities? Chen Xinan didn't want to utilize the Chen family's resources for this company. It was such a pity. Mao Xiyuan thought that if the two companies merged together, it would be possible for the newly merged company to become the world's most powerful company. However, Mao Xiyuan kept the thought to himself and followed Chen Xinan's will to the end. Nobody can prevent Chen Xinan from doing what he wanted to do. Besides starting a new company, Chen Xinan was also preparing to start another project, a new science and technology building for the school. The Chen company funded the project to take control of the building's construction. Coincidentally, the news leaked 2 days before Chen Xinan's graduation ceremony, and the whole school was seething. Chen Xinan paid for this entire massive project? He's so wealthy. As for those who looked up to Chen Xinan, the news only served to demonstrate the disparity between them. The girls, eager to confess to him, prepared as much as possible in the little time before the graduation ceremony, but after searching the whole day unsuccessfully, they learned that he wasn't coming. Without an important figure like Chen Xinan attending, the girls soon lost interest in the ceremony. With the whole school already enraged, the atmosphere turned even darker in his absence. Zhongqing and her roommates also woke up early and dressed elaborately. One reason was to congratulate the seniors with flowers, and the other was to experience Chen Xinan's charm one last time. What they didn't expect was they would never get to see Chen Xinan, even after staying in the sun all afternoon and taking photos with seniors until their faces were sore. "You were right telling me not to go," Zhongqing exclaimed. She was texting Xin Haoyue on WeChat after returning from the ceremony. Xin Haoyue was at the library when she received the text. Unaware Zhongqing was talking about the Chen Xinan's graduation, she replied, "Not to go where?" "I was trying to take pictures with Chen Xinan. Oh my god, we stood under the sun for an eternity before we found out that he wasn't even coming." Xin Haoyue couldn't help but laugh, replying, "Yeah." In the book, Chen Xinan also didn't attend the graduation ceremony. The villainess also had the same expectations as Zhongqing and went to wait for him, only to never see him. Then she went to his apartment, but Chen Xinan also wasn't there. Feeling it was unusual of him not to appear, the villainess went straight to his company to visit him. However, the personnel at the front desk refused to let her in, saying she can't meet with the CEO without an appointment. The villainess started to cry and make a scene, forcing Chen Xinan's assistant to come down and instruct security to take her home. Xin Haoyue thought it was fine being alone in a city, since she wasn't constantly forced to find excuses to avoid those kinds of situations. Xin Haoyue was still trying to calm a forever complaining Zhongqing while picking out her books. Zhongqing typed for a while and sent a voice message. Xin Haoyue, having left her wallet at her seat, went back for her earbuds. She bumped into someone as she walked out of the aisle. Xin Haoyue didn't have time to look, but from the person's height, posture, and body language, she could tell it was a boy. She quickly apologized and bent down to help pick up his books. As she picked up the first book, she heard, "No need to apologize," in a deep voice. That voice. Without a second thought, Xin Haoyue looked up and blurted, "Xiaqiao?" Xin Haoyue was lucky enough to be a guest at one of his events. The academy invited 2 famous online writers to a college to talk to students about their dreams and experiences. The event's sole host was Xiaqiao. Xin Haoyue witnessed his wit and unrivaled eloquence that day. His skill received much praise and admiration. At the end of the event, Xin Haoyue was complimenting the host with her classmate Gu Tong. "What did you expect?" "It's Xiaqiao," Gu Tong told her while smiling. Xin Haoyue was confused. "Who is he?" "The #1 academy host," Gu Tong said in high spirits. "Have you heard of Senior Li?" Xin Haoyue shook her head. "She's the senior who was hired by the city TV show," Gu Tong explained. Xin Haoyue vaguely remembered one of the professors mentioning the girl when she just joined a college. She heard that Senior Li was not only versatile but highly skilled in all facets. The academy recommended her as an intern at the show right after she graduated, and, after her probationary period, she was officially hired. She was present on many TV shows even today. Senior Li is already superb, right? But when she came back to the academy last year and saw Xiaqiao's talent, even she praised him. She said that it'd be a piece of cake for him to get in with his talent. As long as he was willing, his success in the industry was inevitable, Gutong continued. And now, Xin Haoyue unexpectedly met the man himself. Xin Haoyue blinked a few times, to be certain that she identified him correctly. Everything about him was nice. His voice was already pleasant, but it sounded even more attractive when lowered. If Gutong heard what Xiaoqiao said earlier, she'd be so excited that she'd never be able to fall asleep, Xin Haoyue thought. After that event, she also confirmed that Gutong was a total Xiaoqiao fangirl. Xiaoqiao saw Xin Haoyue looking around nervously, and couldn't hide his smile anymore. The sunlight shining through the window made her smile look even more attractive in his eyes. Xiaoqiao stretched out his arm to organize his books. Xin Haoyue looked a bit embarrassed as she stood up. She had stopped picking up his books because she was lost in thought. With only one book in her hands, she awkwardly placed it on top of his stack and said, "Sorry, I got distracted." Xiaoqiao stared at her, raising his eyebrows and smiling. "Could I ask if you were thinking about me?" Huh? The corner of Xin Haoyue's mouth twitched as she found herself at a loss. "You're an exchange student from Shenzhen City, right? Do we share the same major?" Xiaoqiao asked further. Xin Haoyue nodded, but she didn't expect Xiaoqiao to continue. "If you were hosting a show right now, I think that reaction would have been a little too slow." Xin Haoyue was completely out of her element, and after that final comment, it showed. He was right. When we interview guests, we ask questions, but a lot of times, the answers will include rhetorical questions of their own, which are the hardest to answer. So, when you're conducting an interview and you meet a guest who unexpectedly asks you questions, your reaction would only make the situation awkward, he said, breaking the silence of her long pause. Xin Haoyue admitted that he was correct, but to have someone so talented advising someone like her was a bit unexpected. Without waiting for Xin Haoyue to finish her sentence, Xiaoqiao's smile grew bigger. He looked into her eyes and said, "I know you. Yeah? You're Xin Haoyue." Oh my god, Xin Haoyue thought. He knew everything, even though she had never interacted with him before, even though this was his first time seeing he. How did he know? Before she could even ask, Xiaoqiao kept his smile and continued, "I still have things to do, so I'll talk to you next time." Xin Haoyue could only watch as he left, unable to figure out how he knew her. Distracted by the run-in, Xin Haoyue forgot that she needed to listen to Zhongqing's voice message. Meanwhile, Chen Xinan had finished work and was dropping by the school to discuss his upcoming project with the principal, when someone bumped into him from behind. He had a sturdy frame, so he wasn't hurt, but the smell of perfume made him frown. Not bothering to turn around, all he heard was laughter coming from behind him. Then, he heard a clear female voice calling his name. "Chen Xinan!" Still unconcerned, Chen Xinan kept walking until the person rushed in front to block his path. He looked at the girl in front of him, with long hair, wearing a long dress that resembled a woman's sailor uniform from the torso up. This person doesn't look as good as her. It was the first thought that crossed his mind. After realizing who she was, he suddenly frowned. After seeing his demeanor change, the freshman girl who blocked him simply stood and said nothing. Chen Xinan decided not to bother with her and kept walking. But the girl was persistent enough to block him again. Chen Xinan finally spoke. "I hate women who don't know how to tell good from the bad, just like that woman. If you say it a third time, I'll personally make you pack your belongings and leave," Chen Xinan growled without even looking in her direction. The girl was stupefied and started crying. Chen Xinan left as if nothing had happened. Upon arriving at the principal's office, Chen Xinan didn't say a word. He simply seated himself with a particularly nasty expression from his earlier encounter. Principal Zhao, who wore glasses, finally lifted his head to examine him. He was curious about where Chen Xinan's anger originated. "What happened? Your anger is so intense it's spreading to my side of the table," he asked earnestly. Chen Xinan never knew why he couldn't control his emotions when he was at school. He massaged his temples and finally calmed down a little. "Nothing," he answered coldly. Without giving his opinion on the matter, Principal Zhao decided to change topics and asked, "We'll be cutting the ribbon for a college's new building in the next couple of days. Do you think I should go?" As soon as Chen Xinan heard a college, he turned to look at Professor Zhao with an intense gaze. "Now that you mention it, when did we become so well acquainted with a college?" For obvious reasons, Chen Xinan grew even moodier, but Principal Zhao became more excited. Being a youth was so much fun. "CEO Chen, would you do me the favor of joining me in a city?" Principal Zhao asked with a smile. Chen Xinan thought of how ungrateful the principal was, noting the man's attitude and disregard for his feelings in the principal's comments. He rejected almost immediately. "I don't have time to waste." Principal Zhao didn't bother trying to change Chen Xinan's mind. Instead, he continued to smile and said, "That's unfortunate." After leaving school, Chen Xinan received a call from his childhood friend when entering his car. There were only a few people in Shenzhen City who were both close to him and in the same age group. Other people called his friend Zhuanzi, but Chen Xinan never wanted to use that name. Zhuanzi was curious as to why, and even asked him once. Chen Xinan glanced at him lazily and chuckled. "Are you philosophical like Zhuanzi?" Zhuanzi nearly choked. Was he being sarcastic? But when he thought of his barely passing grades, he relented. After Chen Xinan picked up the phone, he heard Zhuanju speaking in a spirited voice. Beizi is returning today, and we're planning a welcome home feast. Are you coming later? Chen Xinan thought it over and asked, what time? Tonight at 8. I'll be there. Chen Xinan thought there was still time until dinner, so he returned to his old house. He hadn't gone back to see his grandfather for months because of his busy schedule. Of course, the real reason was that his grandfather was trying to force him to meet with the Lai family. He wasn't planning on forgiving him just yet. That's why even after Wang Yinlin called Chen Xinan so many times, telling him to go back to the old house to eat dinner, he refused. She thought that if she ignored him, he'd only act more reckless in the future. As Chen Xinan's car pulled in front of the old house, he saw another white car. The model was clearly one that a woman would drive. Chen Xinan, his father, and his grandfather were all the only children of their respective generations. He also didn't have many female relatives. But despite all that, the car's owner was most likely a young woman. While entering the house, his mind filled with guesses of who the visitor was. Before he arrived at the lobby, he saw his Aunt Song walking towards him from the garden. Aunt Song, who's visiting Grandpa? He asked. Aunt Song had been working in the Chen family for more than 10 years, and she saw Chen Xinan as her own child. When she saw him, she was overjoyed that he finally came back after so long, and what a coincidence. Miss Lai was also over. Miss Lai is here to accompany your grandfather. We didn't think you would also come back today, but perfect timing. I'm preparing dinner now, so you should stay, she said cheerfully. The Lai family? Chen Xinan thought for a while, and remembered the existence of this Miss Lai, but he couldn't remember her face. Chen Xinan could hear her gently complaining to his grandfather as he walked in. Grandpa, you're being too hard on me. How can I win like this? Humph. Only that fellow can beat me a couple of times in this world. Other people don't even think about winning. Chen Xinan's first impression of the uninvited guest was far from good, especially when he heard her acting shy. Grandpa, are you talking about Xinan? She asked coyly. Who else? After he finished, his grandfather saw Chen Xinan standing out of the corner of his eye. Speak of the devil. He took a single glance at his grandson. You still know the way back? He asked mockingly. I intended to come back, but now that I've seen someone so insignificant here, I guess there wasn't any need to, Chen Xinan coldly stated. Grandpa Chen decided to ignore Chen Xinan. Miss Lai saw that Chen Xinan finally came back and became so happy that joy was practically oozing from her face. After all her persistence, after every day she came to his old house to make his grandfather happy, it finally happened. Chen Xinan wasn't moved by her advances. He didn't even look at her, choosing not to reply either. I see that you're living a pretty good life. Don't let me disturb you, he replied to his grandfather instead. Grandfather Chen badly wanted to beat him with his cane, but held back. He didn't want to embarrass Chen Xinan in front of a guest. You unfilial thing, he bellowed. Same to you, Chen Xinan replied softly. With that final comment, he gave his grandfather a murderous look and walked out. Aunt Song caught him leaving early and urgently asked, Why are you leaving so early? Why don't you leave after dinner? It's fine. I don't feel like eating with an outsider. The sense was basically a slap in the face to Miss Lai. Aunt Song carefully examined Miss Lai's expression. The entire situation could only be described as awkward. But Aunt Song knew that she couldn't make Chen Xinan stay, and decided to let it go. She saw Miss Lai leave right after Chen Xinan. It was obvious she was chasing after him. Aunt Song was worried that Miss Lai would make things worse after she caught up with him. Master, should I stop her? She asked Grandpa Chen. Grandpa was resting on his wicker chair and aggressively shook it as he proudly replied, Why would you do that? He doesn't like her, so let her bother him all she likes. After he finished speaking, he nonchalantly asked what the family was going to have for dinner. Aunt Song saw that she couldn't help either of them, so she listed dish names without another thought for Miss Lai. Whatever happened, Miss Lai was the one who brought the trouble to herself. Xinan, wait. When Chen Xinan heard his name called so intimately, he retracted his hand from the car door, turned, and said, We're not that close, Miss Lai. You don't need to call out to me like we are. You don't like it when I do that? I don't. After seeing his total disregard for her feelings, Miss Lai could feel the rim of her eyes reddening as she stood in front of him. Chen Xinan could only say that he was entirely uninterested when he realized she was about to cry. Her eyes watered up, and the sight made him want to get in his car and drive off. However, to his surprise, Miss Lai leaped towards his torso. She was scared that he'd push her away, so she used all her might to lock her arms around his waist. Chen Xinan didn't expect that the daughter of a respectable family would act so repulsively. Let go. He scowled, hesitant to break her grip. The thought of touching her skin with his very own hands made him shudder. He didn't want his hands to suffer. Miss Lai held on as if her life depended on it. If she let go, she'd probably never have the chance to see him again. She could forget about ever getting close to him. She sobbed desperately. Do you hate me that much? Do I look that ugly to you? Why do you have to avoid me? If you hate me, then why did you agree to meet me back then? Sinan, you stole my heart but treat me like this. What do you want me to do? I live in an endless world of suffering. I think of you every day, and I always wonder how you're doing. Have you ever thought of me? Even just a little bit is fine. Chen Xinan steeled himself and quickly grabbed both of her arms while forcing her backward. Miss Lai didn't expect him to push her away so rudely. She didn't pay attention for a split second, and suddenly she was sitting on the ground after landing right on her tailbone. She was stupefied. Chen Xinan turned to glare at her as she sat on the ground. She was crying so violently that her eyeliner was everywhere. Don't pull something like this again. It's obvious you could never be with me, and I'm not someone you can just get close to, he said. Miss Lai watched in fear as he threatened her without a single indication of emotion. She turned pale as she recalled everyone's warnings. What they say about him is true. He's immune to anything a woman would use on a man, she thought to herself. Chen Xinan drove off and left Miss Lai with a face full of dust. She sat on the ground, coughing loudly and feeling hopeless. Her status had held her high above the masses, so she was always well received. She was praised by her elders since she was a child, and countless men wanted her, yet somehow she was utterly humiliated. After standing up, tears still in her eyes, she rushed into her own car and fixed her makeup. She sorted her torrent of thoughts and made a call. Shishi, your idea was completely idiotic. Chen Xinan didn't even fall for it. The voice on the other side of the phone responded calmly. You saw him? Yeah. Have you made him hate you because of your usual haphazard behavior? Miss Lai suddenly fell silent. I told you to get his grandpa to like you first, but you decided to throw yourself at him the moment you saw him. How is any of that my fault? Miss Lai was aggravated by the indifferent tone she received, and the first thing she would have done was to snap back at her cousin, if not for the fact that she was at a loss for words. Maybe she was a bit impulsive. It's fine, but how was it that easy for that Xin family bitch to get Chen Xinan? All she did was act weird and drew everyone's attention in the process. Just look at Chen Xinan. He didn't show a hint of emotion. If you want to make him like you, then prepare for a long war. If you decide to give up after failing once or twice, you may as well quit like that bitch did. She was proud of herself whenever she remembered about Xin Haoyue. Who told Xin Haoyue to act so arrogant and full of herself? Xin Haoyue became much more obedient after I taught her a lesson. I heard that she doesn't nag Chen Xinan anymore and went back to a city instead. She thought about how she had traveled for so long and how it was time for her to return. Well, I still have things to do, so let's end the call like this, she chimed happily. Miss Lai had so much more to say, but was robbed of the chance. Was it because she rushed? But with Chen Xinan's attitude, how could she not? If she didn't hook him soon, there'd be even more obstacles. She would have to plan more carefully for the future. When Chen Xinan arrived at his apartment, he took off his clothes immediately. He went into the bathroom to wash thoroughly and threw everything he had worn straight into the garbage. It made his skin crawl. As Chen Xinan kept thinking back, he felt more and more like he was being toyed with. And if he didn't get his revenge, he wouldn't be able to live with himself. Chen Xinan thought about it for another moment and decided to call Zhuangzhu. Has the Lai family been working on a business project with you? Yeah, I'm about to sign the contract. Zhuangzhu was curious about why Chen Xinan would call him to ask directly about the Lai family, given how little he normally called. A certain suspicion came to mind, and he asked, Are you close with the Lai family? No, but the Chen company will take the project we discussed previously, Chen Xinan replied. Excuse me? Zhuangzhu was obviously mad. What do you think you're doing? Last time I asked you to sign a contract, you rejected the offer as if your life depended on it. But now, you're saying you want it. Yes or no, one word, Chen Xinan interjected. Zhuangzhu hesitated for only a second, before firmly replying. Yes. His smile stretching from ear to ear, he said, Anyone who wouldn't accept a deal like this is a fool. Everyone knew that the Chen company was wealthy. A new thought popped into Zhuangzhu's mind, so he decided to prod further. Are you cutting off the Lai family's livelihood because they offended you? The Lai family had asked literally everyone they knew for help, and Zhuangzhu only agreed because he couldn't turn away a friend. The Lai family would have never foreseen such an unfortunate turn of events. Chen Xinan replied bluntly, They did. When Zhuangzhu heard Chen Xinan's icy tone, he suddenly felt a great deal of pity for the Lai family. Why would they offend Chen Xinan? He was inhumanly ruthless when he wanted to be. All right, I'll tell everyone to stay away from the Lai family. Also, remember to come by later. Zhuangzhu made sure to stress the time and location, fearing that his friend wouldn't show up. I know. Chen Xinan hung up after a curt reply. While Zhuangzhu was out womanizing with two of his wealthy friends, Chen Xinan had already arrived 30 minutes early. Zhuangzhu held on to the small and slender waist of a beautiful woman, while his other hand was rubbing her chest. He was nearly about to yell at the waiter, when he saw the waiter entering the room without his permission, when he noticed Chen Xinan behind him. Chen Xinan wore a white t-shirt and slim black pants, his hands in his pockets. With his chin up, he only used the corners of his eyes to examine the smoke-filled room. He gave off the impression that he was important and noble. His demeanor demanded the attention of the room's women and filled their eyes with desire. Upon seeing Chen Xinan, Zhuangzhu bellowed at the scantily clad women. Leave. Hurry. Don't you see Master Chen has arrived? But the women didn't want to leave. A few of them even blushed as they decided to put their feminine charm on display. They looked intimately at Zhuangzu and the others, making it very clear what their intentions were. They were suddenly told to leave, so they were the victims. Not to mention, after seeing their boss frantically trying to please the handsome guy, they couldn't help but want to keep Chen Xinan in their sights for just a little longer. What are you looking at? Get out of my sight now! Screamed Zhuangzu. He carefully prepared a smile for Chen Xinan and was about to speak. He never had the chance because he was interrupted by Chen Xinan. Either you change rooms, or I leave, Chen Xinan said, completely expressionless. The room reeked of cigarettes and perfume, and Zhuangzu knew that it would never please a clean freak like Chen Xinan. Yes, a new room. Let's change rooms, he replied immediately, before commanding a nearby waiter to prepare one for him. When the new room was ready, Zhuangzu welcomed his guest inside. I hope this is to your liking, Master Chen. Chen Xinan's silence was taken as agreement after he came back from smoking alone. Though the room was to Chen Xinan's liking, Zhuangzu's wealthy friends would suffer unspeakably. If he stayed for the whole night, then their party would be about as eventful as a gathering for depressed monks, especially since none of the women were allowed to say. It was a pity because each and every one of them was an absolute stunner. Chen Xinan glanced at Zhuangzu and flashed a smug little smile. You guys can't survive without women? The two rich guys laughed awkwardly, and Zhuangzu came out nearly sneering. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but it's not good for my body when I'm all pent up. As he finished his cheeky reply, he turned over to Chen Xinan with a smirk. He had only intended to tease, but decided to stop when he saw the man in front of him shooting daggers through his eyes. Instead, he did his best to change the topic. But man, how rare is it for you to come early? What's your reason? Yeah, just look at how honored Mo Bei is, one of his friends chimed in. I just happened to have time tonight, Chen Xinan said. No wonder. What did the Lai family do to you to turn you so ruthless? Zhuangzu asked. Don't mention them right now. Chen Xinan replied. The thought of that Lai family woman hugging him was still fresh in his mind, and it made him furious. He lifted his head to address Zhuangzu but stopped himself. There was no point in asking. Zhuangzu was confused. What is it? Chen Xinan ignored him. He was certain that, with Zhuangzu's IQ, it was a waste of time to ask. The handful of men sat around twiddling their thumbs until the main lead, Mo Bei, arrived. Sorry, I was stuck with my family, so I only just arrived. It's fine as long as you're here. Zhuangzu looked at Mo Bei, who seemed to have grown even more handsome during his time abroad. He went up to the guest of honor and playfully tried to punch his shoulder while saying, You're becoming almost as handsome as I am. Mo Bei laughed and dodged the pretend strike. Don't compare me to someone like you. Fuck, surname Mo, are you looking for a fight? Well, I'm civilized, so I don't resort to violence. Zhuangzu got even more riled up by his reply. He nearly pounced on him. Mo Bei ignored him and rushed to get rid of him by heading towards Chen Xinan. Long time no see. Yeah, it's been a while. Mo Bei smiled and continued the small talk. I heard you took over the family enterprises. I did. How was your time outside of the country? Chen Xinan asked. It's all right, I'll probably stay here for a while. I'll move back to China and see how the market is doing in the meantime. Welcome home then? The group of men ate a very lackluster dinner and shared a few bottles of wine. Other than the odd dirty joke, nothing special happened. After dinner, Zhuangzu suggested playing mahjong. All 5 people joined in to play, but after each game, one person waiting for a turn would end up in the loser's seat. After only a few rounds, it was clear that the game was only really between 2 of the men. Chen Xinan won many rounds, and so did Zhuangzu. As he placed a tile, Zhuangzu looked at his winning hand and bit into his cigarette. The god of wealth is watching our game, and he's definitely looking over me. My hands have been amazing, Master Shen. Chen Xinan was too lazy to respond. Mo Bei had also won a few rounds. He looked at Chen Xinan and casually mentioned, There's this one woman from one of the countries I visited. I thought she was only good at cards, but it turns out she's good at everything. Zhuangzu noticed how strange Mo Bei was acting when he talked about the woman, so he couldn't help but gossip. There's more to her, isn't there? Come on, tell us. She blonde? She hot? Mo Bei smiled. She's not blonde, she's a Chinese woman and Anan happens to know her too. Chen Xinan could tell what Mo Bei was trying to get at as he continued. Her name is Sheng Wenyang. She's in the same grade as you and attends the same college. Chen Xinan stopped halfway through dropping a tile. Sheng Wenyang? Mo Bei smiled. When I was coming back, she promised me that you'd remember. Turns out she wasn't kidding. She'll be quite happy when I tell her the news. Chen Xinan laughed and decided not to speak his mind. What a coincidence, Sheng Wenyang knew Mo Bei. Zhuangzu examined how the two had been acting and snuck his way into the conversation. Who's Sheng Wenyang to you, Anan?